Chapter 946. Senior Sister? Qin Feiyang was surprised. He looked at the Chief Tower Master and said, "So, you're the disciple of the second Chief Tower Master?" "Yes. But because my talent is much worse than Senior Sister's, Master passed the position of Chief Tower Master to Senior Sister. Until 10,000 years ago, when Senior Sister met with an accident and had no successor by her side, everyone let me take the position of Chief Tower Master. If Senior Sister were still here, the current Pill Pagoda might be completely different." The Chief Tower Master sighed. There was a touch of disappointment between his eyebrows. Met with an accident? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Who would dare to harm the Chief Tower Master? However, he also knew what to ask and what not to ask. Phew! The Chief Tower Master took a deep breath and calmed his emotions. He looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Do you know why I brought you here?" Qin Feiyang shook his head. "In our Chief Tower, there has always been a rule that only those who have obtained the inheritance of the previous generations can become the Chief Tower Master's disciple." The Chief Tower Master said, "It's really an inheritance." Qin Feiyang was secretly happy. Because as long as it was an inheritance, he would inevitably obtain great benefits. The Chief Tower Master said, "Now, as long as you can obtain the inheritance of any Chief Tower Master, I will officially accept you as my disciple." Qin Feiyang looked at the three statues, then looked at the statue of the ancestor, and asked suspiciously, "Whose statue is that?" This sentence seemed to have touched the Chief Tower Master's heartstrings, and his eyes suddenly sank. His hands in his sleeves were tightly clenched together. Qin Feiyang was surprised. What did this mean? Could it be that the Chief Tower Master and the ancestor were enemies? But no, if they were enemies, the Chief Tower Master would definitely not allow the ancestor's statue to be placed in the place of inheritance. What secret was hidden in this? Qin Feiyang glanced at young Master Hao from the corner of his eyes and transmitted his voice. "Brother Hao, do you know?" "I don't know. I've been here a few times before, so I'm not unfamiliar with the statue. But as for who it is, my father never told me." Young Master Hao said to himself. "It seems that there must be a story behind this." Qin Feiyang mumbled. The Chief Pagoda Master looked at the statue of the first emperor. After a moment of silence he said, "He is a famous figure, but it has nothing to do with the inheritance." Qin Feiyang nodded and did not continue to ask. Chief Pagoda Master withdrew his gaze and looked at Qin Feiyang and young noble Hao. He asked, "Which one of you will go up first to receive the inheritance?" Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Brother Hao, you go first. After all, you are the host." "Then I won't stand on ceremony." Young Master Hao excitedly walked up to the three statues and bowed to them one by one. Immediately after, he retreated more than 100 feet and stood in front of the three statues. He bowed again and then cut his fingertip. 3 drops of blood flew into the air and entered the glabella of the three statues. Next, young Master Hao then closed his eyes, looking extremely pious. "This inheritance needs blood to open?" Qin Feiyang was surprised. This kind of situation was nothing for others, but for him, it was a very troublesome problem. Because his purple gold dragon blood was too special. And the Chief Pagoda Master, judging from his previous expression, must have known the first emperor. Since he knew him, then it was very likely that he also knew that the blood of the first emperor was also purple gold dragon blood. In this way, when the Chief Pagoda Master saw that he also had purple gold dragon blood, he would definitely associate him with the ancestor. How would he explain at that time? Bas! Suddenly, the statue of the second Chief Pagoda Master bloomed with a hazy light. Did it work? Qin Feiyang hurriedly looked over, a touch of surprise crawling up in his eyes. At the same time, the Chief Pagoda Master also looked up at the stone statue with an unconcealable joy on his face. Almost in the next moment, a white divine light flashed out from the glabella of the statue and entered the top of young Noble Hao's head like lightning. Young Noble Hao immediately entered an ethereal state. After 100 breaths, the light on the statue began to slowly dissipate. But young Noble Hao showed no signs of waking up. Until another 100 breaths passed, he suddenly opened his eyes, and 2 rays of light burst out of his eyes. "How is it?" The Chief Pagoda Master hurriedly walked up and asked. Young Noble Hao raised his head and glanced at the Chief Pagoda Master. A sly look flashed in his eyes, then slowly got up and said in disappointment, "I only inherited an inferior battle art." "What? The chief pagoda master's face turned pale. At the same time, the three old men also opened their eyes, their old eyes full of suspicion. Qin Feiyong also had a look of astonishment. Inferior battle art? What kind of joke is this? How could someone leave an inferior battle art to a descendant? Young noble Hao glanced at Qin Feiyong and the others, then looked at the chief pagoda master and sighed. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Sigh. The chief pagoda master looked at young noble Hao and finally sighed. His expression incomparably lonely. That look was more like he had aged more than 10 years. Haha. But suddenly, young noble Hao laughed and said, Old man, I lied to you, I got a divine art. Divine art? The chief pagoda master was stunned. You didn't expect that there would be a day when you would be deceived by me. Haha. Awesome. Young noble Hao laughed out loud, with a hint of ridicule at the corner of his mouth. Little bastard. The chief pagoda master flew into a rage and directly slapped young noble Hao's head, causing him to grimace in pain. Serves you right. The three old men glanced at young noble Hao with schadenfreude, then closed their eyes again. At the same time, Qin Feiyong looked at young noble Hao, a bright light flashing in the depths of his eyes. He never thought that what was passed down was actually a divine art. This was a huge temptation. Now he didn't know how to choose. Accept the inheritance? But what if the chief pagoda master recognized the purple gold dragon blood? Actually, the exposure of the purple gold dragon blood would not expose his identity for the time being. Because, in the entire Forgotten Continent, only the Mu family knew that he had just awakened the purple gold dragon blood. So as long as the Mu family did not say it, even if the purple gold dragon blood was exposed, no one would associate him with Qin Feiyong. But he had to consider the relationship between him and the ancestor. If the chief pagoda master really knew that the ancestor was also the purple gold dragon blood, if the chief pagoda master really had a grudge against the ancestor, then when he showed the purple gold dragon blood, it would definitely arouse the chief pagoda master's suspicion. At that time, he would also inevitably ask about his identity. If it was someone else, he might be able to make up an excuse and dodge it. But this chief pagoda master, from the word quiet he wrote, Qin Feiyong already knew that he was not a simple character. Dodge? It would probably only backfire. But he was unwilling to give up. Because he had worked so hard for so long for this moment. Not to mention that there was a high chance of getting the divine art. Moreover, the mysterious lady also said that the 5-colored crystal stone was on the chief pagoda master. If he didn't become the chief pagoda master's disciple, he wouldn't have the chance to get it. What should he do? Qin Feiyong's heart was in a mess. The chief pagoda master reprimanded young noble Hao a few words, then turned to look at Qin Feiyong, and laughed. It's your turn. It could be seen that he was very happy and gratified. Come on. Young noble Hao also looked at Qin Feiyong and gave Qin Feiyong an encouraging look. Qin Feiyong looked at the 3 statues. On the surface there was nothing strange, but in his heart he was struggling. What are you waiting for? Go quickly, maybe you can also get a divine art. Seeing this, young noble Hao urged. How can the divine art be so easy to get? Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. How do you know if you don't try? Young noble Hao rolled his eyes at him, walked behind Qin Feiyong, and pushed Qin Feiyong towards the statue. Okay, I can walk by myself. Qin Feiyong looked at him helplessly, and then like young noble Hao, walked to the 3 statues and bowed one by one. Then he also walked to the position where young noble Hao received the inheritance, turned to look at the 3 statues, and let out a long breath. He was going to take a gamble. Because if he went back on his word now, it would arouse the chief pagoda master's suspicion. But just as Qin Feiyong raised his arm and was about to cut his fingertip, the old man sitting cross-legged below the first chief pagoda master suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Qin Feiyong. Wait. Qin Feiyong's heart trembled. Could it be that he had already been seen through before it even began? The chief pagoda master, young noble Hao, and the other 2 old men also opened their eyes one after another and looked at the old man in confusion. The old man said hoarsely, This old man has a few words that I want to say to him alone. Can you all leave first? Alone? The chief pagoda master and the others looked at each other, their eyes full of suspicion. The old man said, It won't take too much time. All right. The other 2 old men stood up, turned into a stream of light, and disappeared into the mountain stream below like lightning. Since the two old ancestors had left, the chief pagoda master naturally didn't dare to say anything. He waved his hand and quickly led young noble Hao into the mountain stream below. Qin Feiyong frowned imperceptibly, looked at the old man and asked puzzledly, "Senior, what is the meaning of this?" The old man said, "Then answer this old man first. What are you hesitating about?" Qin Feiyong's pupils shrank. "Enough chit-chat, while they are not here. Quickly open the inheritance," the old man said indifferently. Qin Feiyong was surprised. This old man was actually helping him. But why? "Hurry up," the old man urged. Okay. Qin Feiyong nodded repeatedly and quickly cut his fingertip. 3 drops of purple gold dragon blood flowed out, and in the blink of an eye, merged into the forehead of the 3 statues. Looking at the purple gold dragon blood, the old man's eyes flashed with an imperceptible light. "You can come up." Then, the old man shouted to the chief pagoda master and the other 3, then closed his eyes and fell silent. "Thank you, senior." Qin Feiyong bowed, then sat cross-legged on the ground and closed his eyes. Although he was very confused, he knew that even if he asked, the old man might not tell him, so there was no need to waste time. Soon after, the chief pagoda master and the other 3 also flew to the top of the mountain one after another. Seeing that Qin Feiyong was accepting the inheritance, they didn't disturb him. Time slowly passed. About 300 breaths passed, but the 3 statues didn't move at all. What's going on? Could it be that he failed? Young noble Hao muttered, his brows tightly knitted together. The inheritance here can only be obtained by the fated person. And obviously, this child is not the fated person. The chief pagoda master whispered, a trace of regret on his face. He was quite satisfied with Qin Feiyong. Chapter 947. Another few hundred breaths passed. There was still no reaction from the 3 statues. The old man who helped Qin Feiyong couldn't help but gradually frown. The chief tower master looked at Qin Feiyong and sighed. "Although you didn't get the inheritance, as long as you work hard, you will achieve something in the future with your talent." Qin Feiyong slowly opened his eyes. There was a trace of disappointment on his face. He would be satisfied if he could get a perfect battle art, let alone a divine art like young Master Hao. But he didn't expect that the statues wouldn't even satisfy him. But there was nothing he could do about it. After all, the inheritance here depended on luck. No one could force it. Buzz! But just as he was about to get up, the first statue suddenly released a ray of blood-red light. The chief tower master was shocked. The 3 old men also opened their eyes at the same time and stared at the statue in disbelief. What's there to be surprised about? Young Master Hao was a little confused by the chief tower master's reaction. "What do you know?" The chief tower master glared at him. "What do you mean?" Young Master Hao was even more confused. The chief tower master said in a low voice, "Since ancient times, only one person has obtained the inheritance of the first chief tower master." Who? Young Master Hao was surprised. The chief tower master said, "My senior sister, the previous chief tower master." Young Master Hao was shocked. Then, isn't Ancestor Mu the second person? Yes. It is said that the inheritance of the first chief tower master contains the opportunity to become a god. In other words, as long as one can obtain the inheritance of the first chief tower master, there is a high chance that one will become a god in the future. Actually, this is not a legend. That's because that senior of mine managed to reach the semi-divinity realm not too long after she obtained the heritage. And our chief tower master has a rule. Anyone who obtains the inheritance of the first chief tower master, no matter who or what identity they have, must be protected by everyone in the chief tower master. And let them inherit the position of the chief tower master. The chief tower master said in a deep voice. This. Young Master Hao was also stunned. There was an opportunity to become a god. Wasn't this too shocking? Whoosh. Suddenly, a dazzling blood-red light flashed out from the forehead of the first chief tower master and entered Qin Feiyong's head. Qin Feiyong also immediately entered an ethereal state, his expression extremely serene. Young Master Hao glanced at Qin Feiyong and said inwardly, "Old man, according to what you said just now, wouldn't this Ancestor Mu already be the next chief pagoda master?" "Yes. After I abdicate, he will be the chief tower master. No one can replace him," the chief tower master said. Young Master Hao asked. Then what if it's someone who has committed heinous crimes or has a grudge against our main pagoda? Can only be reformed. Can't be killed. This is the will left behind by the first Chief Tower Master. No one can go against it. The Chief Tower Master. Isn't this equivalent to having a death exemption token? Young Master Hao stared blankly at Qin Feiyong. He couldn't help but envy him. At the same time, the Chief Tower Master looked at Qin Feiyong with an inexplicable color in his eyes. Time flew by. Half an hour passed. Why hasn't he woken up yet? Young Master Hao was surprised. It takes a long time to inherit the inheritance of the first Chief Tower Master. That senior sister of mine took an entire half a month back then. This ancestor worship should take even longer. Let's go back first. The Chief Tower Master pondered and said, half a month? Young Master Hao was surprised. He shook his head and said, you go back first. I'll stay here and wait for him. The Chief Tower Master was slightly taken aback. He frowned and said, when did your relationship with him become so good? Young Master Hao snorted coldly. Can't I have a close friend? Close friend? The Chief Tower Master glanced at Qin Feiyong and raised his eyebrows. Then, he didn't say anything else and quickly turned to leave. The inheritance of the first Chief Tower Master. You brat. You really hit the jackpot. Young Master Hao looked at Qin Feiyong and muttered. Then he sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes to recuperate. The three old men looked at each other and closed their eyes. The land of inheritance soon fell into a dead silence. Back to the Chief Tower Master. After leaving the land of inheritance, he directly returned to his residence and sat in the pavilion with an upset look. Gong Sun Bei, come and see me quickly. Suddenly, he shouted through the air. Whoosh! Soon, Gong Sun Bei streaked across the sky and landed in front of the Chief Tower Master. He bowed and said, Sir, what orders do you have? The Chief Tower Master said in a deep voice, immediately investigate the identity of ancestor worship. Gong Sun Bei was taken aback and asked suspiciously, why? The Chief Tower Master said, he just obtained the inheritance of the first Chief Tower Master. What? Gong Sun Bei's face changed. Then, he looked at the Chief Tower Master's expression. A light flashed in his eyes as he nodded and said, I understand. I'll investigate immediately. Remember, don't leak out the fact that he obtained the inheritance of the first Chief Tower Master. The Chief Tower Master reminded. Okay. Gong Sun Bei nodded, then rose into the air and flew toward the north. After a while, he stopped in the air above a courtyard. Next to a flower bed in the courtyard, a white-haired old man was lying on an armchair, basking in the sun. He looked quite comfortable. Old Lu, you're living a good life. Gong Sun Bei landed in front of the old man and chuckled. That's right. This old man was Mu Qing's second grandfather, Lu Xingfeng. Lu Xingfeng opened his eyes and said with a smile, I'm just taking a break from work. Why? Do you need something from me? Yes, there is something. Gong Sun Bei nodded and said, I heard that you were the one who recommended ancestor worship. You should know his origin, right? Lu Xingfeng's heart trembled. He asked calmly, why are you suddenly asking about him? To tell you the truth, Sir just told me to investigate the identity of ancestor worship. But I really don't know where to start, so I came to ask you. I hope you can tell me the truth. Gong Sun Bei cupped his hands and smiled. His attitude was very polite. Sir is investigating his identity? Did he do something wrong? Lu Xingfeng was surprised. No, he didn't. Gong Sun Bei shook his head. Lu Xingfeng frowned and said, then why do you suddenly want to investigate him? I guess you've heard that the Chief Tower Master thinks highly of him and wants to take him as his disciple. Before that, we have to find out who he is. Gong Sun Bei smiled. So that's how it is. Lu Xingfeng suddenly understood. He stood up and smiled. To be honest, I don't know his identity either. Gong Sun Bei raised his eyebrows. This answer was out of his expectations. He asked suspiciously, since you don't know his identity, why did you give him the God Envoy token? When I saw him in the 9th area, I saw that he was very talented, so I wanted to take him as a talent. At that time, we were at the crucial stage of capturing Qin Feiyong, so I didn't investigate his identity. Lu Xingfeng said. Hearing this, Gong Sunbei frowned and said, his talent is indeed very outstanding, but you can't just ignore it. Yes, that's my negligence. Lu Xingfeng nodded and said, but there's someone who should know. Who? Gong Sunbei asked. Qin Dai. He's with Ancestor Mu, and the two of them seem to have a good relationship. He should know about Ancestor Mu's situation. Lu Xingfeng said. Okay, I'll go ask him now. Sorry to bother you. Gong Sunbei cupped his hands. It's fine. Lu Xingfeng waved his hand. Gong Sunbei smiled and then turned into a stream of light and quickly left. After Gong Sunbei left, Lu Xingfeng's eyes flashed. He turned around and entered the attic. He closed the door tightly and then took out the image crystal. Wang. In less than 3 breaths, Mu Qing's figure appeared above the image crystal. Second Grandpa? Mu Qing's pupils shrank as she hurriedly said, Second Grandpa, didn't we agree not to send me a message in the chief tower? What if someone sees me? I know. But I have to send you a message now. Because the chief tower master asked Gong Sunbei to investigate Qin Feiyang's identity. Lu Xingfeng said. What? Mu Qing was shocked. Was the chief pagoda master having a stroke? Why didn't he investigate before? Why did he suddenly attack now? Lu Xingfeng said, there's no time to explain. Gong Sunbei has already gone to find you. Arrange it immediately. How? Mu Qing frowned. Lu Xingfeng said, you have to create a fake identity for Qin Feiyang in the 9th area. Create a fake identity. Mu Qing pondered for a while, then her eyes suddenly lit up as she nodded and smiled. I know what to do. Seeing the smile on Mu Qing's face, Lu Xingfeng also let out a sigh of relief. In terms of cultivation, he was much stronger than Mu Qing, but in terms of brains, he was inferior. Alchemy room number 9 of the first tower. After Mu Qing turned off the image crystal, she immediately sent a message. After a while, a middle-aged man appeared. He was tall and wore a long white robe. There were strands of white hair at his temples. His dark eyes emitted a sharp light. His whole body exuded the majesty of a superior. Father. Mu Qing bowed. The Mu family head nodded and asked with a smile, how's the progress on your side? Mu Qing said, it's going well, but there's a small problem now. I need father's help. Small problem? The Mu family head frowned and said, say it quickly. I need you to immediately arrange 2 people to go to the 9th area and pretend to be Qin Feiyang's parents. Their cultivation doesn't need to be too high. 1-star combat emperor will do. Also, they need to dress plainly. Mu Qing said. The Mu family head's eyes slightly sank. So, the chief tower has already suspected Qin Feiyang's identity? No. Just investigating. Go and arrange it quickly. I'll take Gong Sunbei to the 9th area later. Mu Qing urged. Good. The Mu family head nodded and asked, what about the location? Since they want to pretend to be Qin Feiyang's parents, they must fake a home. And to fake a home, they naturally have to find a suitable place. When I was in the 9th area, I encountered an ice lake in the south of Ice Crystal City. There were few people there, so the location was chosen. As soon as Mu Qing finished, there was a knock on the door outside. It should be Gong Sunbei. Go and arrange it, do it carefully, don't expose any flaws. I will also try to delay Gong Sunbei here to buy more time for you. Although the Mu family has countless strong rankers, it will take some time to fake a home. If they take Gong Sunbei to the ice lake now, there will be no time to arrange it. After that, Mu Qing gave the coordinates of the ice lake to the Mu family head, then put away the image crystal, but didn't immediately open the door. Instead, he walked into the alchemy room and started the alchemy fire. What are you doing inside? Outside the door. After a while, Gong Sunbei gradually lost his patience and reached out his hand to knock a few more times. The stone door still showed no signs of opening. Is he not in the alchemy room? He couldn't help but frown. After waiting for a little while, he couldn't wait any longer and turned to leave. But at this moment, the stone door slowly opened. It turned out to be Master Gong's son. Is there something you need from this disciple? Mu Qing pretended to be confused and stood behind the door, looking at Gong Sunbei suspiciously. Why did it take so long to open the door? Gong Sun Bei frowned. Mu Qing hurriedly said, Disciple was refining just now. If I offended you, I hope Master will forgive me. Gong Sun Bei entered the alchemy room and sniffed. There was indeed a strong medicinal fragrance in the air, so he didn't pursue it. Then, he closed the stone door and looked at Mu Qing. Are you familiar with Ancestor Mu? Very familiar. Mu Qing nodded. Gong Sun Bei asked, Then do you know who is in his family? Mu Qing thought for a moment and said, Apart from his parents, he has no other siblings. Gong Sun Bei asked again, Then do you know where his family is? Mu Qing shook his head. I haven't been there, but I heard him mention it. It seems to be somewhere outside Ice Crystal City. Where is it? Think carefully. Gong Sun Bei urged. Okay. Mu Qing nodded repeatedly, then lowered his head and pretended to think hard. More than half an hour passed as he pondered. Gong Sun Bei was sleepy from waiting. Mu Qing himself was also sleepy because he didn't think of anything at all. When a person was in this state for a long time, even if he didn't want to sleep, he still wanted to sleep. Gong Sun Bei yawned and said, Have you thought of anything? Mu Qing was troubled. It's been too long. I really can't think of anything now. Gong Sun Bei's face darkened. He suppressed his anger and smiled. Don't worry, think slowly. I'll go over there and take a nap. After that, he entered the lounge and leaned on the chair, closing his eyes to rest. Okay. Mu Qing nodded. But when he looked at Gong Sun Bei, there was a hint of ridicule. In the blink of an eye, more than half an hour passed. I can't delay any longer. Otherwise, it will arouse his suspicion. But over there, Father should be done with the arrangements. Mu Qing muttered secretly. His eyes flashed, then he hurried into the lounge and said, Lord, disciple remembers. Shua. Gong Sun Bei immediately opened his eyes and asked, Where is it? Back then, Ancestor Mu said that his family is next to an ice lake in the south of Ice Crystal City. Mu Qing said, Take me there. Gong Sun Bei said. Mu Qing was slightly taken aback and asked suspiciously, Why are we going there? Gong Sun Bei said, Of course, to confirm it. This? Mu Qing hesitated. Lord, disciple has a question. I don't know if it's appropriate to ask. Speak. Gong Sun Bei said, obviously starting to get impatient. Mu Qing asked, Did Ancestor Mu do something wrong? Investigate him. Don't you know that the chief pagoda master intends to take him as a disciple? Gong Sun Bei looked at him suspiciously. There's such a thing? Mu Qing looked surprised. Then anger rose in his eyes. He said unhappily, This bastard actually hid such a good thing from me. This is too much. You really don't know? This time, it was Gong Sun Bei's turn to be stunned. He shook his head and said, He might want to give you a surprise. Who cares? Mu Qing said disdainfully. So the chief pagoda master wants to investigate his identity. Yes. Gong Sun Bei nodded. That makes sense. After all, if it were anyone else, they would not be at ease to have someone of unknown origin become their personal disciple. Okay, disciple will take you there now. Mu Qing said and opened the portal. Shua! The next moment, the two appeared in the square of the Pill Pagoda. After Gong Sun Bei explained the purpose of his visit to the law enforcement elder guarding the teleportation altar, he opened the altar and brought Mu Qing to the teleportation altar in the 9th region. Then, the two did not delay at all. They flew straight out of Ice Crystal City and headed south. Mu Qing certainly knew the location of the ice lake. But he brought Gong Sun Bei everywhere, and this was naturally to buy time. Chapter 948. In the blink of an eye, half a day had passed. At this moment, it was almost dark. Do you know the way or not? After wandering around for so long, Gong Sun Bei had long lost his patience. I said from the beginning that I have never been to his house. How would I know the way? Mu Qing said helplessly. Then how long do we have to search? Gong Sun Bei frowned. I don't know either. Mu Qing shook his head, glancing at the glacier below with a look of annoyance. Gong Sun Bei couldn't help but feel weak. This guy was really unreliable. Gradually, night fell. There was no moon in the sky, and the earth gradually fell into darkness. But for the two of them, it didn't affect them. This should be more or less done. Mu Qing glanced at the sky and muttered to herself. Then, she pretended to look for him in front of her. Gong Sun Bei followed behind Mu Qing, looking all over the earth. About half an hour later, Mu Qing suddenly stopped and pointed ahead, saying, "Lord, look, there is an ice lake." Gong Sun Bei looked over, and there was indeed an ice lake a few miles ahead. "Let's go and take a look," Gong Sun Bei urged. The two turned into a stream of light and quickly landed above the ice lake. The ice lake was about a few hundred feet long, and there was a thick layer of ice on the surface. White mist rose, and the cold air was oppressive. Around the ice lake, there was an endless ice forest with fierce beasts roaming around. Mu Qing scanned the forest. Suddenly, his eyes flashed, and he locked onto a certain place in the forest in the north, saying, "Lord, there is a fire there." Gong Sun Bei turned his head, and there was indeed a wisp of fire in the forest. Whoosh! The two of them flew over. Gong Sun Bei suddenly asked, "Have you seen Ancestor Mu's parents?" "No. But I heard from Ancestor Mu that his parents are people who live in seclusion and never appear in front of others." Mu Qing said. "People who live in seclusion?" Gong Sun Bei was surprised. Generally speaking, people who chose to live in seclusion and concentrate on cultivation had a far better temperament than ordinary people. In other words, Ancestor Mu's parents were likely to be two hidden experts. A dozen breaths later, the two of them descended above the forest and looked down. In the woods below, there was a courtyard that covered an area of about 100 zhang, surrounded by a row of wooden fences. In the courtyard, there was a small two-story wooden building. It looked very old and exuded an ancient aura. The roof of the wooden building and the wooden railings were covered with a thin layer of ice and snow. "Isn't this too realistic?" Mu Qing muttered to herself. Although he didn't see anyone in the courtyard, he could basically conclude that this courtyard must have been built by his father. In other words, this courtyard had been built not long ago. However, it looked as if it had existed for decades, or even centuries, and was filled with a decaying aura. At this moment, the courtyard door was tightly shut. In the middle of the courtyard, there was a bonfire that was burning and emitting sparks. In the meantime, from a window on the second floor of the wooden building, faint candlelight could be seen. "Go down and ask." Gong Sun Bei looked at the window and whispered. "All right." Mu Qing nodded and landed in front of the courtyard door. He bowed and said, "May I ask if this is Ancestor Mu's home?" Not long after he finished speaking, the window on the second floor slowly opened, and a man and a woman entered Mu Qing's sight. Both of them looked middle-aged. The man's body was slightly robust, and he was wearing a white tiger skin coat. There were wisps of white hair at his temples, and he was full of vicissitudes of life. The woman looked dignified, wearing a snow-white mink fur coat. Although there were crow's feet at the corners of her eyes, she was still charming. The two of them stood side by side in front of the window, looking at Mu Qing and then at Gong Sun Bei, their faces full of suspicion. But at the same time, the man secretly sent a message to Mu Qing. "Young master, why are you only here now? I was afraid that you hadn't arranged it yet. So I took Gong Sun Bei to wander around the mountains for most of the day." Mu Qing laughed secretly. "I see." The two of them suddenly understood. Mu Qing said suspiciously, "How did you do it? It's actually so realistic." "In order to fake this courtyard, we spent a lot of effort. Look at these rotten woods. They were all specially found from our clan. Of course, the biggest credit is the ice and snow here. If it wasn't frozen, no matter how we cover it, there would still be some traces left." The man laughed. "That's true." Mu Qing muttered. Ice and snow could cover all traces. And the 9 regions snowed all year round, and the temperature was terrifyingly low. It was no exaggeration to say that if a basin of water was placed outside, it would freeze in less than an hour. Therefore, in this environment, as long as one did it carefully, it would be difficult to find any flaws. The man said secretly, "What should we do next? I believe my father has already told you about Qin Feiyang's situation. You just need to pretend to be more realistic." Mu Qing said. "Okay." The man nodded in agreement. In the blink of an eye, the man glanced at Mu Qing and Gong Sun Bei, nodded and said, "This is the home of Ancestor Mu. May I ask who you are?" Mu Qing cupped his hands and said, "Junior Qin Day is a friend of Ancestor Mu." "So you're a friend of Zong, er?" The man's face suddenly showed a trace of a smile. As parents, they like to use an affectionate form of address when addressing their son. Mu Qing smiled and said, "So, you two are Brother Mu's parents?" "That's right." The two of them nodded. "Finally found it." Mu Qing let out a long breath and looked up at Gong Sun Bei. Swish! Gong Sun Bei flashed and landed in front of the courtyard. He cupped his hands and said, "I'm Gong Sun Bei, the Chief Tower's messenger." "Greetings." "Chief Tower's messenger?" The two of them looked at each other, quickly went downstairs, opened the courtyard door, and said with a smile, "It's too cold outside. Please come in." "No need. I'm just here to confirm the identity of Ancestor Mu." Gong Sun Bei waved his hand and smiled. The woman was taken aback and showed a worried face. She said, "Did Zonger get into trouble outside? If so, please be magnanimous and don't bother with him." "Madam, you worry too much. Not only did Ancestor Mu not get into trouble, but his performance in the Chief Tower made our Chief Tower very satisfied. Now, he even wants to take him as a personal disciple." Gong Sun Bei smiled. "He went to the Chief Tower?" The couple looked surprised. "You two don't know?" Gong Sun Bei looked at the two of them suspiciously. The man smiled bitterly and said, "To be honest, our child has been a little rebellious since he was young. No matter what he does, he won't tell us." "I see." Gong Sun Bei nodded and said with a smile, "Many children are like this, but compared to other children, Ancestor Mu is quite sensible, so you two don't have to worry about him." "Sensible? Messenger, don't comfort us. How can we not understand our child?" The two of them sighed. "Ha!" Gong Sun Bei shook his head and smiled. He asked curiously, "Seeing that you two are one-star combat emperors, you can be considered top experts in the Forgotten Continent. Why are you hiding here?" "I'm tired. So now, I just want to find a place where no one is around and peacefully live out my life." The man said with a smile. "The mundane world is just a dream. Actually, there are many people in this world who want to be like the two of you, to let go of everything and live a peaceful life in the mountains. But how many of them can do it? Everyone can't get rid of the curse of fame and power. But the two of you can do it. Your indifferent nature is admirable." Gong Sun Bei cupped his hands and said, "I'm ashamed." The man shook his head and said with a smile, "Our place is remote. The two of you have come a long way, so we don't have much to entertain you. Why don't you have a cup of hot tea before you leave? The Chief Tower is still waiting for me to report back. I really can't stay for too long. When I have time in the future, I will definitely come and visit the two of you." Gong Sun Bei said with a smile. "The envoy is too polite. Since the envoy has official business to attend to, then I won't force you to stay. You are welcome to visit us in the future. I also ask the envoy to take care of my son in the future." The couple said, "I'm afraid it's him who will take care of me in the future." Gong Sun Bei shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Okay, I won't say any more. I'll take my leave. Then I won't see you off. Take care." The man cupped his hands and said with a smile. Gong Sun Bei nodded and took Mu Qing into the air and quickly disappeared into the night sky. The couple couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. The woman asked, "What should we do now?" "Go back. Let's ask the patriarch first." The man pondered for a while and took out an image crystal. After a while, the Mujia's patriarch's shadow appeared and asked, "Did you send them away?" The two nodded. The Mujia's patriarch said, "Then you continue to stay there, in case the Chief Tower sends people to investigate again." "Yes." The two bowed and said, "Chief Tower." In the courtyard attic, the Chief Tower Master sat in the hall, looking at the flickering candlelight on the tea table without saying a word. In front of him, Gong Sun Bei stood respectfully and explained the situation of Qin Feiyong's parents. "A hidden person." After Gong Sun Bei finished, the Chief Tower Master muttered to himself. After a while, he looked up at Gong Sun Bei and said, "So there's no problem with his identity?" "Yes." Gong Sun Bei nodded, then his lips slightly opened as if he wanted to say something, but there seemed to be some kind of concern, so he didn't say it. I know, you can go now. The Chief Tower Master lowered his head slightly and waved his hand. Yes. Gong Sun Bei bowed respectfully and turned around to leave. Wait. Just as Gong Sun Bei walked to the door, the Chief Tower Master suddenly spoke again. Gong Sun Bei stopped and turned to look at the Chief Tower Master and asked, Is there anything else? How's the situation in Qinghai? The Chief Tower Master asked. According to the report of the spy, it has been confirmed that a cluster of 7th-grade pillfire is about to be born. Gong Sun Bei said. Yes. This news must be blocked, otherwise, if the major tribes and the Mu family receive the news, they will definitely intervene. The Chief Tower Master said. I understand. Gong Sun Bei nodded. In addition, go and arrange a simple ceremony. After all, I want to accept a disciple, so I can't just do it casually. The Chief Tower Master said again. Then, do you want to inform the Mu family and the leaders of the major tribes? Gong Sun Bei asked. The major tribes must be informed. As for the Mu family, forget it, it has nothing to do with us anyway. The Chief Tower Master said. Okay. Gong Sun Bei nodded and turned around quickly. The inheritance of the first Chief Tower Master. I have to say, you little guy, your luck is really good. Chapter 949. Time flew by. The news that Qin Feiyang was going to become the Chief Tower Master's disciple slowly spread to the world. One could imagine what kind of explosive news this was. In the following period of time, whether it was the major cities or the major tribes, they were all discussing this matter. Similarly, ever since the news spread, countless people went to the first tower to visit Qin Feiyang. Because the Chief Tower Master's direct disciple's status in the Forgotten Continent was even higher than the God's messenger, they all wanted to curry favor with him as soon as possible. However, no one had seen Qin Feiyang before. Other than the Chief Tower Master, young Master Hao, Gong Sun Bei and a few others, no one knew that Qin Feiyang was in the land of inheritance. They also didn't know that he was comprehending the inheritance of the first Tower Master. If this news were to spread, it would be even more shocking. The land of inheritance. In the blink of an eye, 10 days passed. Swish. It was also this morning that Qin Feiyang suddenly opened his eyes. 2 rays of purple-gold divine light burst out. So that's how it is. He raised his head to look at the statue of the first Chief Tower Master, and there was a touch of excitement between his brows. The inheritance he received was also a type of divine art. Moreover, it was the soul refining technique that he couldn't comprehend. According to the information in the inheritance, the soul refining technique was a divine art created by the first Chief Tower Master. However, although the soul refining technique was a divine art, it had no attack power. Its only use was to train the soul and increase the grade of the mental energy. That's right. It was to increase the mental energy. And this was what Qin Feiyang desired the most right now. He used the 7th grade pill fire to refine pills, and it wouldn't take long for his mental energy to dry up. Why was that? It was because his mental energy had already reached its limit. If it was the 8th grade pill fire, with his current mental energy, he estimated that he could only last for half an hour at most. A mere half an hour couldn't refine a few pills at all. Therefore, the appearance of this soul refining technique was simply like manna from the heavens to him, solving the most important problem at hand. However, he was still unable to cultivate the soul refining technique. This was because this inheritance only contained the experience of the soul refining technique, but not the chant. As for the jade slip that he had obtained from the martial arts treasure house, it did contain the incantation, but it was only a small part of it. In other words, the soul refining art that he currently grasped was incomplete. Here came the problem. Where is the rest of the chant? Only by finding all the incantations would one be able to cultivate the soul refining technique. Could it be that it was also in the martial arts treasury? Thinking of this, Qin Feiyang stood up and bowed to the statue of the first Chief Tower Master. Immediately after, he then looked at the old man who helped him and transmitted his voice. Thank you, senior. The old man looked very ordinary. There was a faint scar above his left eye. He did not open his eyes, nor did he respond to Qin Feiyang. He was like a cold stone statue. Qin Feiyang gazed at him deeply. He didn't linger any longer. He turned around and walked towards young Master Hao. During these 10 days, Young Master Hao had been meditating with his eyes closed, waiting for Qin Feiyong. "I'm up." Qin Feiyong walked forward and said with a smile. "Done." Young Master Hao opened his eyes and looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyong nodded. Young Master Hao was refreshed. He stood up and asked, "What divine art did you get?" "The experience of the soul-refining art." Qin Feiyong did not hide it. "Soul-refining art? Heard of it." Not only did young Master Hao not have the slightest joy, but there was a trace of doubt on his face. "Is there a problem?" Qin Feiyong asked. Young Master Hao said, "Of course there is a problem." But before he finished speaking, Qin Feiyong suddenly reached out his hand to stop young Master Hao and said in a low voice, "Let's talk while walking. Don't disturb them anymore." "Okay." Young Master Hao glanced at the three old men and nodded. Whoosh! The two of them rose into the air like lightning and flew towards the holy land of the Chief Tower. Young Master Hao frowned and said, "The inheritance you got is really the soul-refining art?" "Why would I lie to you?" Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes at him. "That's strange. Didn't you say that the soul-refining art is a kind of ungraded battle art?" Young Master Hao frowned. Qin Feiyong looked at young Master Hao with a trace of doubt in his eyes. This person was the son of the Chief Tower Master. How could he not know about the soul-refining art? Or could it be that even the Chief Tower Master did not know the origin of the soul-refining art? "Hurry up and tell me clearly." Seeing that Qin Feiyong did not speak for a long time, young Master Hao asked impatiently. "The soul-refining art is not an ungraded battle art, but a divine art. It was created by the first Chief Tower Master. It can train the soul and increase the strength of one's mental strength." Qin Feiyong explained briefly. "Are you kidding me?" Young Master Hao's body stiffened. He stared at Qin Feiyong in surprise. Qin Feiyong looked at him helplessly and raised his hand. "I swear." "Damn!" Young Master Hao was dumbfounded. His eyeballs were about to fall out. He did not expect that the soul-refining art that everyone thought was an ungraded battle art was actually a divine art. It could even increase one's mental strength? Was this a dream? Suddenly, young Master Hao seemed to have thought of something and asked, "Other than the soul-refining art, is there anything else?" "No." Qin Feiyong shook his head. Young Master Hao frowned and said, "That's a pity." "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyong was stunned. "My father said that the inheritance of the first Chief Tower Master contained the opportunity to become a god. Although this soul-refining art is also amazing, compared to the opportunity to become a god, it is too far away." Young Master Hao sighed. This time, it was Qin Feiyong's turn to be shocked. Contained the opportunity to become a god? Wasn't this too unbelievable? You don't have to feel regretful. After all, there are gains and losses. As for the soul-refining art, to me, it's worthless. But to you, it's worth a lot. After all, you're an alchemist. Young Master Hao laughed. Qin Feiyong nodded. This made sense. Because to an alchemist, nothing was more important than mental strength. This time, we've both gained something. Why don't we go to the Dragon Phoenix house and celebrate? Young Master Hao suggested. Celebrate? Qin Feiyong's face twitched, and he said speechlessly, "I think the celebration is fake. The real reason is to see the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix house." Young Master Hao looked a little embarrassed when his thoughts were seen through. Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed. "I have to go to the martial arts treasury immediately. I don't think I can go to the Dragon Phoenix house." "Why are you going to the martial arts treasury?" Young Master Hao looked at him in confusion. Qin Feiyong said, "The jade scroll I obtained before was only a small part of the soul-refining art." "A small part? Then isn't it incomplete?" Young Master Hao was surprised. "That's right." Qin Feiyong nodded weakly. No wonder those people who obtained the soul-refining art in the past couldn't comprehend it. It turns out that it was incomplete. Young Master Hao said in realization. Not only is it incomplete, but it's also a divine art. It would be strange if they could comprehend it. Qin Feiyong shook his head and sighed. Thinking about his previous actions, he was really stupid. Not to mention that the soul-refining art was incomplete, just the fact that the soul-refining art was a divine art, even if he was given the complete cultivation chant, he would definitely not be able to comprehend it. Because with his current state of mind and comprehension, It was not enough to comprehend the divine art. All right then, I'll go over first. When you're done, if it's still early, go to the Dragon Phoenix house to find me. Young Master Hao said. Okay. Qin Feiyong nodded. Young Master Hao immediately opened the teleportation gate and left. Qin Feiyong also opened the teleportation gate and directly descended on top of the martial arts treasury. Elder Wang was still sitting in front of the gate. At this moment, a young man in black was standing in front of Elder Wang and saying something. The young man in black was about 1.8 meters tall and straight like a pine tree. He had bright eyes and white teeth, and his facial features were as if they were carved by a knife. In Qin Feiyong's eyes, this was a very unfamiliar face. At the same time, Elder Wang and the young man in black also sensed Qin Feiyong's aura, and they both raised their heads to look at Qin Feiyong. A smile immediately appeared on Elder Wang's face. The young man in black's pupils shrank, and then he smiled at Qin Feiyong in a friendly manner. Qin Feiyong also nodded his head politely, but he was somewhat suspicious in his heart. The smile on the young man in black's face was indeed there, but he did not feel any friendliness at all. On the contrary, in the eyes of the young man in black, he could feel a strong bloody aura. This bloody aura even made him feel disgusted from the bottom of his heart. Boom! Elder Wang waved his hand, and the gate of the martial arts treasury quickly opened. He then looked at the young man in black and said with a smile, "Go in." Yes. The young man in black bowed and then entered the martial arts treasury. After the gate closed, Qin Feiyong also landed in front of Elder Wang and cupped his hands. "Greetings, Elder Wang." Elder Wang nodded and said with a smile, "I heard from the Chief Pagoda Master that you have obtained the inheritance of the first Chief Pagoda Master." "I was just lucky." Qin Feiyong smiled embarrassedly. "This is not luck. It's an opportunity. You have to cherish this opportunity. After all, after so many years, you are the second person to obtain the inheritance of the old man, and the first person to obtain the inheritance was the previous Chief Pagoda Master." Elder Wang reminded. "I will." Qin Feiyong nodded. Elder Wang asked, "Then why are you looking for me this time?" "I came this time to ask Elder Wang if the rest of the soul refining skill is also in the martial arts treasury?" Qin Feiyong said. Elder Wang squinted his eyes slightly and asked suspiciously, "What do you mean?" "To be honest, the inheritance I obtained this time is the soul refining skill. But there are only insights, no incantations." Qin Feiyong said truthfully. He had already told this matter to young Master Hao, and young Master Hao would definitely tell the Chief Pagoda Master, so this matter could not be hidden. After hearing Qin Feiyong's words, Elder Wang's body immediately trembled, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and shook his head with a smile. It seems that Elder Wang also knows the true origin of the soul refining skill. Elder Wang's reaction was enough to explain everything. He was indeed lying to him before. Phew! Elder Wang sized up Qin Feiyong, and after a moment, he let out a long breath and nodded. "Yes, I know. Not only me, but the 3 elders guarding the place of inheritance and the previous Chief Pagoda Master also know." Qin Feiyong asked suspiciously, "Then why did you make up a lie to deceive everyone?" "It's a long story." Chapter 950. Qin Feiyong looked at Elder Wang quietly, not bothering him. When the first Pagoda Master passed away, he left behind the soul refining technique in hopes that someone in the future could comprehend it. But he didn't think that the profound and unfathomable deity formula was not something that ordinary people like us could comprehend. After a long while, Old Wang withdrew his gaze and looked at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong nodded. That was a very apt statement. The second Pagoda Master, the third Pagoda Master, and the current Pagoda Master all went into seclusion to comprehend the soul refining technique, but none of them succeeded. I tried too, but it was too profound. I couldn't comprehend the true meaning behind it at all. Slowly we gave up. But the soul refining technique was created by the first Pagoda Master himself. It's the symbol of our pill pagoda and our spiritual pillar. We can't just let it be lost, right? Thus, after our discussion, we finally decided to place our hopes on you youngsters. But if the complete soul refining technique was made public, it would definitely cause a commotion. It might even lead to a bloodbath. So to prevent that from happening, We separated the complete soul refining technique into 10 parts and placed them on the 10 floors of the martial arts treasury. We also hid all the information about the soul refining technique and claimed that it was a gradeless technique. And the jade slip you got was only the first part. Elder Wang explained. So that's how it is. Qin Feiyang came to a realization, then frowned and said, Then have you ever thought that if the complete soul refining technique is already so difficult to comprehend, wouldn't it be even harder to comprehend it after splitting it up? Of course we thought about it. But the first part is the easiest. If you can't even comprehend the simplest part, how can you comprehend the later parts? Am I right? Elder Wang smiled. That makes sense. Qin Feiyang nodded. But in the end, we still underestimated the soul refining technique. Over the years, many young people have obtained the first part, and many of them were monstrous geniuses, but none of them were able to comprehend it. As for you, if you hadn't obtained the inheritance of the first Chief Tower Master, you probably wouldn't have been able to comprehend it either. Old Wang said. Qin Feiyang did not deny it. Deity arts and battle arts were not on the same level. If he wanted to comprehend the god incantation on his own, he would have to become a god first. Qin Feiyang asked, What was the inheritance of the previous Chief Pagoda Master? Elder Wang shook his head and said, She didn't mention it to anyone, so I don't know either. I heard young Master Hao say that the inheritance of the first Chief Tower Master contains an opportunity to become a god. Is this true? Qin Feiyang asked again. It's true. Elder Wang nodded and smiled. Although you didn't obtain the opportunity to become a god, to be able to obtain the experience of the soul refining technique is also a great fortune. After a pause, Elder Wang continued. Moreover, no matter what inheritance you obtain, as long as you obtain the inheritance of the first Chief Tower Master, you will be the successor of the Chief Tower Master in the future. Successor? Qin Feiyang looked startled and said in surprise, There's such a thing? Yes. This is the will of the first Chief Tower Master. No one can go against it. Elder Wang nodded. In that case, won't I be the next Chief Tower Master? Qin Feiyang was a little dumbfounded. In fact, the Chief Tower Master had told young Master Hao about this in the inheritance land, but because it was through voice transmission, Qin Feiyang did not hear it. Don't be happy too early. Although you are now the next Chief Tower Master, you still need to be alive. So no matter what you do in the future, you have to be careful. Elder Wang exhorted meaningfully. I understand. Qin Feiyang nodded. To be honest, he was not interested in the position of Chief Tower Master at all. But this way, his relationship with the Chief Tower Master would be one step closer. After all, he was now not only the Chief Tower Master's disciple, but also the successor of the Chief Tower Master. This would undoubtedly be more beneficial to snatching the heavenly star flame and the 5-colored crystal in the future. Elder Wang, since this disciple has already obtained the inheritance of the first Chief Tower Master, then can the remaining 9 parts of the soul refining technique be given to this disciple? Qin Feiyang asked, his eyes full of desire. This? Elder Wang hesitated for a moment and said, Logically speaking, since you have obtained the inheritance of the old man, it can be considered that you have obtained the old man's approval, so it should be given to you. But a few days ago, the Chief Tower Master said that you have to find the remaining 9 parts yourself. Find it myself? Qin Feiyang frowned. Elder Wang laughed. Don't be dissatisfied. This old man can see that the Chief Tower Master is doing this for your own good. For my own good? Qin Feiyang frowned even more. Because he really couldn't see how this was for his own good? Seeing this, Elder Wang also raised his eyebrows and said, This old man asks you, now that you have entered the martial arts treasury, what do you need? Contribution points. Qin Feiyang said without hesitation. Then how do you get the contribution points? Elder Wang asked again. Capture all kinds of beasts alive. Qin Feiyang said. That's right. Capturing beasts alive is much more difficult than killing beasts, and without a certain method, it can't be done. Therefore, the Chief Tower Master is doing this to give you an opportunity to test and gain experience. Elder Wang said. All right, I accept. Qin Feiyang lowered his head helplessly. This was the Chief Tower Master's order. He had no choice but to accept it. Looking at Qin Feiyang's dejected look, Elder Wang couldn't help but shake his head and laugh, and said, How about this? This old man will show you the way, and I guarantee that you will be able to obtain all the soul-refining techniques in the shortest time possible. Please speak. Qin Feiyang's spirit was lifted, and he raised his head to look at Elder Wang expectantly. When I separated the soul-refining techniques, in order to make it easier to find, this old man deliberately left a trace of aura in the 10 jade slips. This aura is very weak, others can't sense it, but the 10 jade slips can sense each other. When you go to the top 9 floors, as long as you take out the jade slip you obtained on the first floor, it will immediately help you find the other 9 jade slips. Elder Wang laughed. Qin Feiyang's eyes lit up. One had to know. There were countless jade slips on each floor of the martial arts treasure house, and they were all stored in the same stone box without any markings. If he were to rely on himself to find them, he didn't know how long it would take for him to find all the jade slips. This undoubtedly saved him a lot of time. He bowed and said, "Thank you, Elder Wang." "It's nothing." Elder Wang smiled and said, "This old man originally wanted to have a good chat with you, but seeing your impatient look, I won't waste your time. Then this disciple will take his leave first." Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said, "All right." Elder Wang nodded and suddenly said, "This old man will give you a coordinate. The fierce beasts there are basically between 1 Star War Master and 5 Star War Saint. They won't pose a fatal threat to you." After saying that, Elder Wang gave the coordinates to Qin Feiyang. "Thank you, Elder Wang." After Qin Feiyang memorized the coordinates, he thanked him again, opened the teleportation gate, and walked in without looking back. Not long after the teleportation gate disappeared, a figure appeared out of thin air. It was the black-clothed youth who had entered the martial arts treasure house earlier, holding a simple and unadorned stone box in his hand. After the black-clothed youth appeared, he immediately opened the stone box and took out a jade slip. After looking at it carefully, a trace of disappointment gradually appeared on his face. "Sigh. Why is it so difficult to get a perfect battle art?" Next, the black-clothed youth sighed and walked in front of Elder Wang, handing the jade slip and the stone box to Elder Wang. If it was so easy to get, then it wouldn't be called a perfect battle art. Elder Wang took the jade slip and the stone box and said with a faint smile. Although there was a smile on his old face, it wasn't as amiable as when he was facing Qin Feiyang. The black-clothed youth smiled bitterly, took out his identity token and handed it to Elder Wang. There was a rule in the martial arts treasure house that if the disciple of the main tower wasn't satisfied with the battle art he had obtained, he could return it to the martial arts treasure house. This way, he would be able to return 1/10 of the contribution points. Elder Wang grabbed the identity token and waved his hand. A stream of light swept into the token and then returned it to the black-clothed youth. After the black-clothed youth kept the identity token, he looked around and asked suspiciously, "Where's Ancestor Mu?" He went to the White Tiger Mountain Range to earn contribution points. Elder Wang smiled faintly, then sat in front of the pagoda and closed his eyes to rest. White Tiger Mountain Range. The black-clothed youth's eyes flashed, opened a teleportation gate, and disappeared without a trace. At the same time, White Tiger Mountain Range. This vast mountain range was located in the west of the Central Divine Kingdom, about 5,000 to 6,000 miles away from the Divine City. In the mountain range, ancient trees towered into the sky. Qin Feiyang stood in the air above a giant mountain peak, lowering his head and scanning the area below. The forest below was dense, and the vines were like horned dragons. In the forest, there were countless fierce beasts, but the strongest was only a 5-Star War sect, so their value wasn't great. After watching for a while, Qin Feiyang turned into a stream of light and flew towards the depths of the mountain range. As he went deeper and deeper, the aura of the fierce beasts became stronger and stronger. After flying for about 500 to 600 miles, Qin Feiyang could already sense the fierce beast aura of the 9-Star War sect. But now, the fierce beasts of the 9-Star War sect couldn't enter his eyes. He continued forward. Along the way, he also encountered some medicinal herbs and picked them up. Roar! Boom! Suddenly, the faint roar of a beast came from the left, as well as the sound of a mountain collapsing. Qin Feiyang stopped in the air and looked in the direction of the sound. He could vaguely see that the mountains and rivers there were crazily collapsing. Whiz! He made a turn in the air, and like a bolt of lightning, he rushed over there. About 100 breaths passed. Qin Feiyang landed on the peak of a mountain, walked to the edge of the cliff, and scanned the area in front of him. Soon, His gaze was locked onto the area in front of him. In the distance, a white-clothed woman was locked in battle with a ferocious beast. A terrifying aura swept out in all directions. Within a radius of more than 10 miles, the mountains and rivers shattered, the earth collapsed, and magma erupted from the ground, dyeing half the sky red. The woman in white had her back facing Qin Feiyong, so he couldn't see her true appearance. However, her figure was beautiful, and her waist was slender. His cultivation was also not bad. 8-star war sect. However, that back view gave Qin Feiyong an inexplicable sense of familiarity. As for that fierce beast, it was a fire dragon lizard. The fire dragon lizard was also a species from 10,000 years ago. It had the tail of a dragon and the head of a lizard. However, compared to a real dragon, it was much smaller. It was only 3 to 4 meters long and its entire body was scarlet red, as if it was cast from magma. However, the ferocious might it emitted was rather astonishing. Its cultivation was slightly stronger than the woman in white. 9-star war sect. It seems that it's a bit difficult for an 8-star war sect to deal with a 9-star war sect's fire dragon lizard, right? Qin Feiyong muttered. According to the ancient records, the fire dragon lizard had a thick layer of scales on its body, similar to the scales on a crocodile. These scales were extremely tough, and humans of the same realm were almost unable to break through them. Furthermore, the saliva that the fire dragon lizard spat out carried a type of toxin that could numb one's nerves. Although the woman in white had mastered a battle art, she would have to pay a huge price to kill this fire dragon lizard. As expected, the fire dragon lizard suddenly opened its mouth and spat out a transparent saliva. The woman in white seemed to know that the saliva contained poison, so she didn't fight back. She turned around and quickly dodged to the side. It's her. Just as the woman in white turned around, Qin Feiyong also saw the side of her face, and his expression froze. So this woman was Chu Xian. This world was really small, to be able to meet her here. He had to admit that this was fate. Chapter 951. Performance. Fatso was startled, somewhat baffled. Look over there. Qin Feiyong pointed to Chu Xian, who was fighting fiercely with the fire dragon lizard. Fatso suspiciously turned his head to look, and a trace of excitement immediately crawled up his face. Roar! At the same time, just as Chu Xian was dodging the saliva, the fire dragon lizard roared towards the sky and instantly rushed behind Chu Xian. Its scaled dragon tail swept out and fiercely slapped towards Chu Xian's back. Puff! Chu Xian let out a miserable groan and immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Like a meteorite, he crashed into the ruins below and was drowned in dust. A mere 8-star war sect dares to challenge this emperor? You really don't know what's good for you. The fire dragon lizard's ferocious nature erupted as it opened its wide mouth, revealing its white fangs as it rushed towards Chu Xian. Qin Feiyong laughed. If you don't help, your sweetheart will most likely be in trouble. Fatso suddenly quivered and immediately rushed over. But suddenly, Qin Feiyong pulled him back and frowned. Before you go save her, shouldn't you change your appearance first? Fatso was now in his original appearance. And back then in the 9 regions, Fatso had also appeared a lot. So many people knew him. If Fatso were to rush out like this now, it was very likely that he would be recognized by Chu Xian. At that time, his identity would naturally be exposed. That's right. Fatso slapped his head, secretly cursing himself for being so muddle-headed that he almost messed up the big picture. Then, he took out an illusory form pill and threw it into his mouth. His appearance immediately changed. In less than 3 breaths, he turned into the appearance he had when he first entered the Central Divine Kingdom. His body was still very fat, but his face and eyes had undergone a qualitative change. Even Qin Feiyong might not be able to recognize him if he didn't know about it. Whiz! After changing his appearance, Fatso did not dare to delay for a moment, and rushed towards Chu Xian like lightning. At this moment, Chu Xian had already crawled out from the dust. She was covered in blood and her face was pale. The fire dragon lizard was only a dozen or so meters away from Chu Xian. Its bell-like ferocious eyes flashed with a frightening light. Looking at the rapidly approaching fire dragon lizard, Chu Xian's delicate body trembled in despair. But at this moment, Fatso stood in front of Chu Xian like a heavenly soldier. Who? Chu Xian was shocked. But then, she realized that this figure seemed familiar. The fire dragon lizard naturally saw Fatso. However, not only did it not stop, the ominous glint in its eyes became even more astonishing. "You're courting death." Fatso smiled disdainfully. He stretched out his arm and punched the fire dragon lizard's head. Roar! The fire dragon lizard was sent flying on the spot, howling in pain. The hard scales on its head were shattered by Fatso's punch and blood gushed out. So strong! Xueqi, who was at the back, was dumbstruck. The fire dragon lizard had the cultivation of a 9-star war master, and its intelligence was not inferior to a human's. After receiving Fatso's punch, it knew that it was much stronger than the woman behind it. It decisively turned around and fled. "You want to run?" Fatso grinned. Using the return to one step, he chased after it like lightning and stepped on the back of the fire dragon lizard. Bang! The fire dragon lizard was like a meteorite as it smashed into the ground below, creating a deep crater. Following that, Fatso also landed beside the fire dragon lizard. He turned to look at Xueqi, who was not far away, and revealed a smile that he thought was very handsome. "It's you." However, when Xueqi saw Fatso's face, his brows knitted tightly together. The smile on Fatso's face froze, and he said helplessly, "Do you not like me that much?" Xueqi was silent. "I admit that in terms of looks and family background, I can't compare to Guofeng. But in terms of character, I'm more than 100 times better than him. Let's not talk about being lovers, but we can still be friends." Fatso hung his head dejectedly, his face full of disappointment. Hearing these words, Xueqi couldn't help but look at Fatso. Suddenly, she smiled, walked in front of Fatso and said, "Thank you." "No need, no need. It's a small matter." Fatso was startled, and immediately raised his head to look at Xueqi, waving his hand, somewhat at a loss. Looking at Fatso's current appearance, Xueqi couldn't help but want to laugh. This person was quite cute. But she endured it and said with a cold face, "But don't think that just because you saved me, I will repay you." Before Xueqi could finish, Fatso hurriedly said, No, I never thought of asking you to repay me." In the end, Xueqi couldn't hold it in and laughed out loud. She said helplessly, "All right, I'm not a tigress, don't be so reserved. I won't pursue what happened in the past. As for the future." At this point, Xueqi stopped abruptly, and a sly look flashed in her eyes. "In the future?" Fatso looked at her anxiously. "Why are you so silly? Don't you understand? Of course we will be friends in the future." Xueqi rolled her eyes at him. Hee. Fatso scratched his head and couldn't stop laughing. "It's over. It's completely hopeless." Standing on the peak of the mountain, Qin Feiyong looked at this scene and shook his head speechlessly. Fatso was usually a very smart person. Why did he become so silly when he met Xueqi? Whoosh! He took a step forward and landed behind Xueqi. "Who is it?" Sensing Qin Feiyong's aura, Xueqi immediately turned around, her face full of vigilance. "Why are you here?" However, when she saw that it was Qin Feiyong, the vigilance on her face was replaced by surprise. Qin Feiyong pointed at Fatso and smiled. "If he's here, I'm definitely here. What's your relationship?" Xueqi looked at the two of them suspiciously. Fatso glanced at Qin Feiyong, then looked at Xueqi and said, "He's my big brother." "Big brother?" Xueqi was surprised and asked, "Biological big brother?" Faced with this question, Fatso was a little hesitant, not knowing how to answer. Qin Feiyong nodded without hesitation. "Yes, biological big brother." "This?" Xueqi looked at the two of them strangely. Why didn't they look like biological brothers? Ahem. Qin Feiyong coughed dryly and teased. "To be honest, he's not biological. My parents picked him up by the river." Fatso's face darkened and he said angrily, "Get lost, you're the one who picked him up." "Still denying it? Why don't you go back and ask Mom?" Qin Feiyong looked at him mockingly. "Okay, I'll ask." Fatso snorted coldly. Looking at the two of them arguing, Xueqi's expression became more and more strange. Qin Feiyong smiled helplessly and waved his hand. Okay, let's stop joking. We're not biological brothers. We're sworn brothers." "I see." Xueqi suddenly realized. How could two people with such a big difference be biological brothers from the same mother? Qin Feiyong looked at Xueqi and asked, What are you doing here? Chu Xian said helplessly. Isn't it to earn contribution points? What about you guys? Me too. Qin Feiyong nodded. Chu Xian looked at Fatso again. Because Fatso was not a disciple of the main tower. Fatso smiled and said, I'm here to accompany him. I'm bored anyway. Chu Xian nodded and said, How's your harvest? Fatso said, I just came here, so I didn't get anything. What about you? Chu Xian looked at the dying fire dragon lizard and sighed. You saw it too. I'm going to catch it, but it seems that I can't do it with my strength. Fatso said, That's easy. You just have to bring it back now. But you defeated it. Chu Xian frowned. It doesn't matter who defeated it. Besides, we're friends now. There's no need to be polite with us. The fatty was very generous and said with a heroic smile. Is this okay? Chu Xian looked at the two of them and hesitated. Of course. Fatso nodded without hesitation. Chu Xian struggled for a moment, but finally accepted Fatso's kindness and said gratefully, Thank you. I told you not to be so polite. If you continue to be like this, we'll be angry. Fatso said unhappily. Looking at Fatso, who was full of sincerity, Chu Xian also showed a sincere smile on her face. Then she looked at Qin Feiyong and said, Congratulations. Qin Feiyong was stunned and asked suspiciously, What are you congratulating me for? Still playing dumb. Now, the entire Central Divine Kingdom already knows that you're going to be the Chief Tower Master's disciple. Chu Xian said. Everyone knows? Qin Feiyong was stunned. Yes. I heard that there's going to be a ceremony. They even invited the leaders and high priests of the various super tribes. Chu Xian said. This? Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. Why didn't anyone tell him about such a big thing? Even if they didn't discuss it, they should at least inform him in advance. After all, he was the one involved. This is a joyous occasion. Why do you look a little unhappy? Chu Xian looked at him in confusion. Qin Feiyong shook his head and said, It's too ostentatious. I don't like it. Chu Xian was stunned. If it was someone else, they would have already spread the news everywhere. However, this person was not happy about it. What a weirdo. Let's not talk about this anymore. Let me ask, how do you exchange the wild beasts you capture for contribution points? Qin Feiyong said. Chu Xian said, You still don't know? Qin Feiyong said, I didn't ask in detail. Chu Xian was speechless. He didn't even ask around before coming to hunt. How careless was this person? War Emperor, War Master, War Saint, and War Emperor level wild beasts can all be exchanged for contribution points. The only difference is the amount. 1-star War Emperor level wild beasts can be exchanged for 1 contribution point, and so on. And 1-star War Master level wild beasts can be exchanged for 10 contribution points. 2-star War Master level wild beasts can be exchanged for 20 contribution points. As for War Saint level wild beasts, they can be exchanged for even more contribution points. 1-star War Saint level wild beasts can be exchanged for 100 contribution points. If it's a 1-star War Emperor level wild beast, then it can be exchanged for 1,000 contribution points. Chu Xian explained in detail. Qin Feiyong nodded his head and asked again, Then how many contribution points do we need to enter each level of the martial art treasury? The first level, 100 contribution points. The second level, 200 contribution points. The third level, 300 contribution points, and so on. And if we want to go to the 10th level, we need 1,000 contribution points. Chu Xian said. That's not a lot. A 1-star War Saint level wild beast can be exchanged for 100 contribution points. Let me calculate. Going to the first level, 100 contribution points. Going to the second level, 200 contribution points. I've calculated it. Even if we go to all 10 levels of the martial art treasury, we will only need 5,500 contribution points. 55 1-star War Saint level wild beasts will be enough. Fatso said. Chapter 952. Not much. However, hearing Fatso's words, Chu Xian's face showed a trace of dissatisfaction. Sacred beasts may be nothing to you, but for ordinary disciples like us, it is impossible to defeat them, let alone capture them alive. That's true. Qin Feiyang and Chu Xian nodded. In fact, the most important thing was not how many sacred beasts were captured alive, but the probability of obtaining a perfect battle art. Although the contribution points required to enter the martial arts treasury were not much, the probability of obtaining a perfect battle art was too small. For example, Chu Xian. She must have entered the martial arts treasury many times over the years, but so far, she had not obtained a perfect battle art. In other words, even if you have 10,000 contribution points, you may not be able to get what you want. Therefore, in the martial arts treasury, it mostly depended on luck. However, this had no effect on Qin Feiyang. What he wanted was the soul refining technique. With the jade slip he obtained on the first floor, he did not need to rely on luck to find it. He only needed to gather 5,500 contribution points and he could get it all. As for the other perfect battle arts, it would be best if he could find them, but if not, he would not force it. Chu Xian looked at the two and smiled. All right, you guys are busy, I'll go back first. Go back now? Fatso was anxious and hurriedly said. It's still early, why go back? Follow us. I promise to let you bring back a few sacred beasts. It was not easy to have a chance to get along. How could he miss it? No. Chu Xian shook her head. Why? Fatso frowned. It's too obvious. After all, with my cultivation, I don't have the ability to capture a sacred beast alive. When I bring it back, Old Wong will be able to tell at a glance that it was you who helped. And if others help to capture a beast alive, you won't get any contribution points. I don't want to be a topic of ridicule. But I still have to thank you for your kindness. Chu Xian smiled. What a strong-willed woman. Fatso muttered and nodded with a smile. All right then, if there's a chance, let's hunt together again. Okay. Chu Xian nodded and then opened the portal, dragging the fire dragon lizard, and walked in without looking back. Fatso looked at Chu Xian's back reluctantly. When the portal disappeared, Fatso turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said, Boss, you said before that you would let me enter the main tower. What is it? You want to go to the main tower to look for her now? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. With your ability, isn't it easy for you to capture 55 saint beasts? I can't help much here. Besides, the mysterious person who bought the herbs has been handed over to Yen Wei. I have nothing to do. Just let me go, okay? Fatso tugged at Qin Feiyang's arm and pleaded pitifully while acting like a spoiled child. Get lost. Qin Feiyang waved his hand impatiently. He felt goosebumps all over his body. Thank you, boss. Fatso was overjoyed. He immediately opened the portal, leaving Qin Feiyang alone, and hurriedly ran in. Bastard! You put a girl before a friend. I was blind. Qin Feiyang cursed with a livid face. But when the portal dissipated, a smile appeared on his face. Thinking about it carefully, Fatso was not young anymore. It was indeed time for him to start a family and start a career. If Fatso could really win Chu Xian's heart, it would be a happy event for their small group. However, when it came to relationships, it all depended on fate. Buzz! Suddenly, the image crystal in his arms made a noise. Qin Feiyang took it out and Mu Qing's shadow immediately appeared. Bastard, what have you been doing these days? I sent you messages several times, but you didn't reply to me? Mu Qing did not say a word and directly scolded him. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang frowned. He had been in the land of inheritance these days, so it was naturally impossible for him to respond to Mu Qing. How dare you ask me what's wrong? Don't you know that the Chief Tower Master has been investigating your identity a few days ago? The more Mu Qing spoke, the angrier he became. These days, because he had not been able to contact Qin Feiyang, he was almost dying of anxiety. But this bastard still acted as if nothing had happened? He was asking for a beating. Investigating me? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said in a deep voice, What's going on? You really don't know? Mu Qing's face stiffened and then twitched. He cursed. I really don't know what to say to you. You're so careless all day. Qin Feiyang said, Can you cut the crap? What's going on? Mu Qing immediately told Qin Feiyang everything in detail. I see. Qin Feiyang muttered. Let me tell you, if it weren't for my timely arrangements, you would have been locked up and beaten by Gongsun Bei. Mu Qing rolled his eyes at Qin Feiyang and said, Now, can you tell me where you've been fooling around these days? I didn't have time to fool around. I've been in the land of inheritance these days. Qin Feiyong said. What? What were you doing in the land of inheritance? Mu Qing was surprised. Qin Feiyong said, I obtained the inheritance of the first chief tower master. Damn. Mu Qing was dumbfounded and said in shock. Are you sure you're not joking with me? Qin Feiyong shook his head. That's incredible. Do you know what it means to obtain the inheritance of the first chief tower master? It means that you are the next chief tower master. Oh my god, how did you do it? Did you step on dog shit when you went out? Mu Qing was so shocked that he was a little incoherent. Get lost. Qin Feiyong glared at him and said, Let's get down to business. I'm thinking, can we change our plan a little? How do we change it? Mu Qing was puzzled. Since I'm already the next chief tower master, why don't we wait for me to succeed the position? At that time, we won't have to fight for the heavenly star flame. Because at that time, the heavenly star flame will be mine. Qin Feiyong said. Mu Qing thought for a moment and said, In the long run, this is indeed the best plan, and there's no danger but there's not enough time. Is it the time when the miracle will open? Qin Feiyong asked. Yes. There are only 2 years before the miracle will open. And if you want to succeed the position of Chief Tower Master, you must wait for the current Chief Tower Master to die or reach the end of his lifespan. But the current Chief Tower Master is a 9-star combat emperor. I even heard from the Great Ancestor and Second Ancestor that he is about to break through to the pseudo-god realm. Do you know how long the lifespan of a pseudo-god is? At least 5,000 or 6,000 years. Can you afford to wait for that long? So the plan you mentioned won't work at all. Mu Qing shook her head and said. Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. 5,000 or 6,000 years was simply an astronomical figure for him. Mu Qing sneered and said, Besides, the current Chief Tower Master may not pass the position to you. What do you mean? Qin Feiyong was surprised. You may not know the current Chief Tower Master, but the Mu family knows him very well. However, there are some things that I can't say too clearly. In short, you just have to be careful. Mu Qing said. After she finished speaking, the phantom image dissipated. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. He indeed didn't know the Chief Tower Master, but when he met the Chief Tower Master last time, he also carefully observed him. He didn't look like a sinister and cunning person. However, he remembered Mu Qing's warning in his heart. Because at this moment, Mu Qing wouldn't lie to him. Then, he put away the image crystal and rushed deeper into the White Tiger mountain range. In less than 100 breaths, he sensed the aura of a holy beast in front of him. When he got closer, he found that there was a canyon in front of him. The canyon was surrounded by mountains on all sides, and there were no entrances or exits. He could only enter from above. Whoosh! He turned into a stream of light and rushed to the top of the canyon. The canyon was very big, and it was full of tall weeds. The weeds were withered and yellow, and it looked very desolate. As soon as he flew over the canyon, Qin Feiyong smelled a pungent stench in the air. Qin Feiyong glanced at the canyon, and his eyes suddenly locked on the center of the canyon. Amidst the weeds, there was a giant python that was over 30 meters long lying on the ground. Its whole body was pale gold, and there were 2 ant-like horns on its head. Its whole body was covered in scales. It closed its eyes and seemed to be sleeping. The holy aura Qin Feiyong sensed came from this giant python. Golden-scaled dragon python. Looking at the giant python, Qin Feiyong's eyes were full of surprise. This golden-scaled dragon python was also a species from 10,000 years ago. It was said that it was the descendant of the golden dragon and the flying serpent. The golden dragon and the flying serpent were both legendary beasts. And this flying serpent was as famous as the azure dragon, the white tiger, the black tortoise, and the vermilion bird. However, because the legend was too old, there was no way to verify whether the golden-scaled dragon python was the descendant of the golden dragon and the flying serpent. But the strength of the golden-scaled dragon python was an undeniable fact. According to the ancient records, the golden-scaled dragon python was more ferocious than any other giant python. It never ate dead things, only living things, and swallowed them in one gulp. Moreover, its toxicity was enough to kill any creature of the same level. So usually, when people encountered the golden-scaled dragon python, they would take a detour if they didn't have absolute confidence. Now, this golden-scaled dragon python had the cultivation of a 1-star battle saint. Qin Feiyong stood in the air and sized up the golden-scaled dragon python, his eyes flickering. Finally, he turned around and left the canyon, continuing to go deeper. It wasn't because he was afraid of the golden-scaled dragon python. Although the golden-scaled dragon python was terrifying, it also had a weakness. He was confident that he could capture it alive. He left because he suddenly thought of an idea to wait for the exhausted to arrive. Although capturing 55 saint beasts alive was easy, it would definitely take a lot of time. He didn't want to stay here for too long. So, he was going to find the Beast Emperor in this area. Berserk beasts were the same as humans. The strong had their own territory. Every mountain range, every region, there was a Beast Emperor. As long as he could subdue the Beast Emperor, all the berserk beasts in this area would also obediently submit. Just as Qin Feiyong was looking for the Beast Emperor, another person came to the White Tiger Mountain Range. This person was dressed in black. His figure was tall, and his eyebrows were like swords, exuding an extraordinary sharpness. If Qin Feiyong was here, he would definitely recognize him at a glance. It was the black-clothed youth he met in front of the martial arts treasury not long ago. Where is he? Where did he go? The black-clothed youth stood above a mountain ridge, scanning the surroundings with his brows tightly knitted together. Hey, no matter where you are, I will find you today. A moment later. Chapter 953. In the sky of the Central Divine Kingdom, the sun shone brightly and there were no clouds in the sky for thousands of miles. Qin Feiyong walked alone in the somewhat stuffy forest, carefully sensing the aura of every ferocious beast. The beasts he had encountered so far were basically all holy beasts. It wasn't that there weren't any War Master-level beasts, but there were very few of them. About an hour passed. An unusually powerful beast aura suddenly entered Qin Feiyong's perception. He immediately stopped and stared at the forest in front of him, his expression full of vigilance. That aura came from right in front of him. A moment later, from the strength of the aura, he judged that the beast should still be a distance away, so he continued to move forward. However, every step he took was extremely careful, not daring to make the slightest sound. After a dozen breaths of time, he walked out of the forest and a grassland entered his sight. The grassland was vast and boundless. There were no mountains, no trees, only wild grass. Qin Feiyong stood on a small hill at the edge of the forest. His field of vision was very wide and he could see very far. He swept his gaze over bit by bit, but there were no traces of any beasts. He didn't even see a flying insect. Although the grassland and the forest were close together, they were like two different worlds. On one side, the roar of a beast shook the sky. On the other side, it was as silent as dead ashes. It should be hiding somewhere here, Qin Feiyong muttered. He had seen this situation too many times. Only where the Beast Emperor was entrenched would there not be a single flying insect. He concealed his aura, soared into the air, and silently flew forward. The grassland was extremely vast, and one couldn't see the end of it at a glance. After flying for about a dozen miles, suddenly, Qin Feiyong's pupils shrank, and he immediately stopped in the air, looking at a patch of grass not far away. There was a black stone that was about 10 feet big in that place. Its surface was very smooth. And on top of that stone, there was a beast lying on its stomach. It was a golden leopard. Its body wasn't very big, only about 3 meters long, but it was muscular and very strong. The fur on his body was like satin, shining brightly. It lazily lay on the stone, as if it was taking a nap. Golden Thunder Leopard, Qin Feiyong mumbled. The golden lightning leopard was the same as the golden-scaled dragon python. It was also a remnant from 10,000 years ago. In terms of strength, it was not much stronger than the golden-scaled dragon python. However, its speed was extremely fast. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that if it were to unleash its maximum speed, it would be comparable to a perfect battle art. According to Qin Feiyong's judgment, this golden lightning leopard should be a 3-star battle saint. In other words, as long as it unleashed its maximum speed, its speed would reach the level of a 7-star battle saint. Even if Qin Feiyong used the phantom steps, he would not be able to catch up to it. Therefore, Qin Feiyong did not dare to act rashly. There was only one chance. If the golden lightning leopard escaped, it would definitely take a lot of time. He pondered for a moment. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed as he landed in front of the golden thunder leopard. Whoosh! The golden lightning leopard immediately opened its eyes, and two shocking rays of light shot out from its eyes. Do you dare to bet with me? Qin Feiyong didn't waste any time and directly provoked the golden lightning leopard. Bet! The golden lightning leopard was stunned and looked at Qin Feiyong strangely. Was this person crazy? Qin Feiyong ignored its gaze and said, Let's fight. If I win, you will submit to me. If I lose, I will satisfy any of your conditions. Crazy. The golden lightning leopard rolled its eyes at him, then closed its eyes and continued to nap. The corner of Qin Feiyong's mouth twitched fiercely. One must know. Right now, he was stirring up trouble. Not to mention a berserk beast, even a good person would be dissatisfied and flip out. But this guy, he didn't seem angry at all. Wasn't he a bit calmer? Hey, I'm talking to you. Didn't you hear me? Qin Feiyong stepped forward and kicked the golden lightning leopard twice. This emperor can't cure your mental illness. Go somewhere else. The golden lightning leopard was still not angry. Its tone was very calm, and it didn't even open its eyes. Mental illness? When Qin Feiyong heard this, a row of black lines appeared on his forehead. After all this time, did this guy think he had a mental illness? Bastard, what's wrong with your eyes? Can't you see that I'm here to cause trouble? Qin Feiyong shouted angrily, raised his right foot, and stomped on the golden lightning leopard. Swish! But the moment he stepped on it, the golden lightning leopard turned into a golden light and disappeared in an instant. Boom! Qin Feiyong stepped on the bluestone. Accompanied by a loud noise, the bluestone immediately shattered, and a big pit appeared on the ground. Dust flew everywhere. Seeing the golden lightning leopard disappear in front of his eyes, Qin Feiyong immediately felt a strong sense of crisis in his heart. Just as his foot landed, he immediately looked up and scanned the surroundings, looking for the golden lightning leopard. Suddenly, an ear-piercing wind sounded behind him. However, before he could turn around, he felt something hit his back hard. Puff! He spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot and flew out, smashing into the grassland not far away. In just a moment, his internal organs were seriously injured. What a fast speed! Qin Feiyong was aghast. He had already sensed the aura of the golden lightning leopard before, but he had no time to counterattack. He climbed up in a sorry state and turned around to see the golden lightning leopard standing in the air in front of him, staring at him fiercely. Immediately, he touched his back with his hand, and his hand was full of purplish gold blood. A tearing pain came from his back. Looking at the golden lightning leopard's claws, he saw a piece of flesh. Obviously, it was the one who attacked Qin Feiyong before. I thought you had a mental illness. Otherwise, with your cultivation of one-star battle saint, how could you dare to provoke me? But it turns out you're not sick. You're really here to die. The golden lightning leopard smiled cruelly. While speaking, it slowly raised its claws, and sent the piece of flesh torn from Qin Feiyong's back into its bloody mouth. This was nothing. It even chewed a few times with relish before swallowing it. That pair of huge fierce eyes also revealed a bloodthirsty light. Perhaps in the eyes of berserk beasts, humans were no different from food. But when this scene fell into Qin Feiyong's eyes, he couldn't help but feel his scalp tingle. Because from this point, it could be seen that this golden lightning leopard was more ferocious than he imagined. However, although the injury was very serious, it was nothing to him. Because now, the purplish gold dragon blood also had the ability to heal. Coupled with the merged fire of life, the injury could be healed at the fastest speed, and it would not affect his next battle. This is the first time I've encountered purplish gold blood and flesh. The taste is not bad. The golden lightning leopard licked its lips, and a trace of greed appeared in its eyes. Just now, you said that you want to challenge me, right? Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. In just a short while, the wound on his back had already scabbed over. It could be seen how much life force there was in his body. Good. This emperor accepts your challenge, said the emperor. If I'm defeated by you, I'll submit to you. But if I win, Then you have to stand there obediently and let me enjoy you. The golden lightning leopard grinned, and its pupils were filled with cruelty. Chapter 954. All right. Qin Feiyong was waiting for this sentence, and nodded without hesitation. As soon as he nodded, the golden thunder leopard launched a fierce attack, not giving Qin Feiyong any time to prepare. Moreover, its speed was too fast, and in the blink of an eye, it landed in front of Qin Feiyong. Boom! Puff! Qin Feiyong was once again sent flying, spurting out blood. Whether it's the strong or the weak, this emperor will go all out. So, don't think that this emperor will let down his guard. Only idiots would do such a thing. The golden thunder leopard sneered, and then rushed towards Qin Feiyong like lightning. A pair of claws flashed, not giving Qin Feiyong the slightest chance to counterattack. Puchi! A piece of flesh on Qin Feiyong's chest was torn off again, and purple-gold dragon blood spurted out. You dare to challenge this emperor with this little ability? Even if you're not sick, you're still a fool. The golden thunder leopard laughed and threw the piece of flesh into his mouth, chewing with relish. The corner of Qin Feiyong's mouth lifted. When he landed, he turned in the air, supported himself with both hands, and did a 360-degree flip, landing steadily on the ground. Then, he lowered his head to look at his bloody chest, and a fierce light flashed in his eyes. He raised his head to look at the golden thunder leopard and said with a smile, "Isn't it too early to start being arrogant? You can still laugh?" The golden thunder leopard was surprised and then grinned. "But this emperor believes that you will soon kneel down and beg for mercy." Whiz! Before its voice faded, it suddenly disappeared. But it didn't really disappear. It was because its speed was so fast that even Qin Feiyong couldn't see it. Boom! Qin Feiyong decisively activated the battle character's secret art. His eyes and long hair instantly turned blood red, and his entire body was filled with fighting spirit. The moment he activated the battle character's secret art, the golden thunder leopard appeared behind him, and its sharp claws fiercely waved. Humph! Seeing that Qin Feiyong was about to suffer again. But suddenly, he snorted coldly and threw a backhand punch. This punch just happened to collide with the golden lightning leopard's claws. Although he couldn't see the golden lightning leopard, he could sense its aura. From this aura, he could determine the location of the golden lightning leopard. However, when his fist met the golden lightning leopard's claws, he instantly felt an explosive power crazily surge towards him. With a cracking sound, the skin and flesh on his arm were torn open, and blood and flesh splattered everywhere. Even the bones of the deities were broken. His entire body was sent flying again, crashing into the ground in the distance. As the dust rose into the air, a deep crater appeared. Not only is his speed fast, his strength is also very strong. Qin Feiyong mumbled. On the other hand, the golden thunder leopard. It only took a few steps back, and there were no wounds on its body. Qin Feiyong struggled to stand up. He stared at the proud golden lightning leopard with a hint of fear in his eyes. A 3-star battle saint golden lightning leopard was not easy to deal with. The golden lightning leopard did not continue to attack Qin Feiyong. It stood in the air like a king, looking down at Qin Feiyong. Suddenly, it rolled its eyes and said, "This emperor has changed his mind. I want to give you a chance." "Tell me about it," Qin Feiyong said. The life force in his body was quickly repairing his injured arm. "Your strange blood contains a huge amount of divine dragon blood essence, which is very beneficial to this emperor's cultivation. If I kill you like this, it would be a pity. How about this? You become this emperor's human pet. This emperor is not greedy. You only need to give this emperor half a bowl of blood every day. When this emperor descends to the world, I guarantee that you will not be short of benefits." The golden lightning leopard grinned. Human pet? Descending to the world. Qin Feiyong's face darkened. It actually dared to make him a human pet? It even shamelessly boasted that it wanted to descend to the world. Who did it think it was? The golden lightning leopard raised its claws, picked its nose and laughed. "There's only one chance. If you miss it, it'll be gone. Think about it carefully." "Think your sister." Qin Feiyong flew into a rage. How was this a beast emperor? He was simply a ruffian. He took a step forward, and the ground within a radius of a few miles crazily cracked. Whiz! following closely. He was like a bolt of lightning as he rushed towards the golden lightning leopard. With your speed, it's not enough. The golden lightning leopard shook its head and walked with its 2 legs. As if it was walking in the air, it slowly walked towards Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang's veins popped out. This bastard was simply playing with him like a monkey. The most important thing was that although the golden lightning leopard was playing with him, it did not lower its guard, nor did it show mercy. This was undoubtedly even more difficult to deal with. Boom! The red sword chi surged out from his body like a tide. 40 sword shadows instantly appeared out of thin air. The terrifying sharpness was earth-shattering. Yeah, not bad. The golden lightning leopard looked at the 40 sword shadows in surprise. Cut! Qin Feiyang roared. The 40 sword shadows poured out, shaking the sky as they slashed towards the golden lightning leopard. Hey! The golden lightning leopard bared its teeth. Rumble! A golden thunder tide suddenly rushed out from its body, emitting a deafening sound of thunder. This was not an illusion. Whether it was the thunder tide or the sound of thunder, they were all real. Qin Feiyang was not surprised in the slightest, because the golden lightning leopard was born with the power of thunder. In other words, the thunder tide was formed by the golden lightning leopard's battle chi. The thunder tide rolled, covering the sky and earth. In Qin Feiyang's eyes, it was like countless sharp blades pouncing over, emitting a terrifying aura. Rumble! Clang! Finally, the thunder tide and the sword shadows met in the sky. A series of loud noises resounded in this place, deafening the ears. That terrifying shockwave swept out in all directions, destroying everything in its path. In less than 3 breaths of time, the land within a radius of dozens of miles around one man and one beast was shattered into pieces, leaving behind a scene of devastation. Puff! At the same time, Qin Feiyang retreated step by step, blood constantly flowing from the corner of his mouth. Every collision between the sword shadow and the thunder tide would cause a certain amount of damage to his body. The golden lightning leopard was also retreating. The look in its eyes also became a little dignified. When the last sword shadow collapsed, the thunder tide also dissipated. The golden lightning leopard cried out and spat out a mouthful of old blood. This is a perfect battle art. Its pupils contracted. Yes, I have already figured out your strength. Your speed is indeed, as the rumors say, comparable to a perfect battle art. And your strength is indeed very strong, especially your battle chi. The power of thunder is naturally stronger than other types of battle chi. But unfortunately, I have a perfect battle art. Qin Feiyang smiled. It's impossible for ordinary humans to have a perfect battle art. Who are you? The golden lightning leopard said in a deep voice. Main tower. Qin Feiyang said. So it's someone from the main tower. This emperor understands. You want to capture this emperor alive and exchange it for contribution points. The golden lightning leopard said. You know quite a lot. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Humph. Of course this emperor knows. Because back then, this emperor's parents and 4 brothers died tragically in the hands of selfish humans like you. So, you will die today without a doubt. After learning that Qin Feiyang was a disciple of the main tower, the golden lightning leopard became ferocious. That pair of fierce eyes was instantly covered with flesh and blood, full of hatred. Perfect battle art, not only you humans have it, this emperor also has it. Thunder thousand strikes. With a roar, the power of thunder poured out. Its body flashed with golden lightning as if it was incarnated into a thunder beast. Moreover, the aura emitted by the lightning was 4 times stronger than before. This is impossible. Qin Feiyang was horrified. How could a beast lurking in the mountains master a battle art? Moreover, it was a perfect battle art? Go to hell. The golden lightning leopard roared. The golden lightning around its body suddenly carried the power to destroy the world as it charged towards Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang retreated as expected. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. One had to know. The golden lightning leopard was a 3-star sacred beast. With the help of the perfect battle art, its current strength was comparable to a 7-star sacred beast. Facing the fury of a 7-star sacred beast, even if he could block it, he would have to pay a heavy price. Therefore, the wisest choice now was to avoid this attack. However, things weren't that simple. The golden lightning emitted wisps of aura, firmly locking onto him. No matter where he fled, the golden lightning would follow. It's useless. Thunder 1,000 strikes can lock onto your aura. If it doesn't hit you, it won't dissipate. The golden lightning leopard sneered, its eyes filled with strong murderous intent. I can't avoid it? Qin Feiyong frowned and suddenly smiled coldly. If that's the case, then I will shatter it. Shattering a perfect battle art comparable to a 7-star sacred beast was still a bit too difficult for Qin Feiyong at present. But now. Chapter 955. Shatter. Are you dreaming? Ha ha. The golden lightning leopard laughed wildly, its bell-like eyes filled with disdain. You'll know soon whether I'm dreaming or not. Qin Feiyong turned around and stopped in mid-air, staring at the golden lightning. The golden lightning cut across the sky, the thunder was deafening, and the terrifying destructive power distorted the void. Just as the golden lightning was about to strike, Qin Feiyong raised his right hand and slapped it. In the middle of his palm, a golden word, return, appeared. Immediately after, a wave of golden light burst out, containing a mysterious force. Like a giant golden dragon, it pounced on the golden lightning. Return formula. Boom. Crack. When the two met, a loud explosion sounded between heaven and earth, almost tearing people's eardrums. At the same time, Qin Feiyong's body shook, his arm was shattered, and his flesh and blood splattered everywhere. However, the golden lightning only paused for a moment, then it shattered the golden light and continued to pounce on Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong's heart sank. It was indeed difficult for a 1-star battle saint to fight against a 7-star battle saint. No, it was not very difficult. It was very difficult. If it wasn't for the protection of the battle character art, his body would have been crushed. But it was not to the point where he could not resist. Without hesitation, he quickly raised his left hand and used the return formula again. Boom. The golden light appeared again. The golden wave covered the sky and fiercely crashed into the golden lightning. With a loud bang, Qin Feiyong's left hand split open again, and dragon blood stained the sky. But it did not shatter. His eyes were like torches, like a mountain, standing tall in the void. In the middle of his palm, the golden light poured out continuously, crazily colliding with the golden lightning. Waves of destructive air waves rushed in all directions. At this moment, the sky was trembling, and the earth was shattering. The fierce beasts in the forest around the plain were crawling on the ground, trembling, and their eyes were filled with fear. So what if you're a 3-star saint beast? So what if you're a perfect battle formula? Submit! Qin Feiyong roared. His blood-red hair danced in the air. His eyes were full of fighting spirit, as if a god of war had returned. Rumble! Finally! The golden lightning was bounced back. How could this be? The golden thunder leopard turned pale with fright. These golden lightning bolts were formed from its battle chi, but it was shocked to find that it couldn't control them. What the hell? While it was in a daze, the golden lightning struck back and instantly engulfed it. Roar! Immediately, the golden lightning leopard's pained screams resounded in the air. How could my battle art turn around and kill me? I don't believe it. This must be fake. The golden lightning leopard roared again and again. All of a sudden, an even more terrifying ferocious aura erupted like a volcano in this world. Behind the golden lightning leopard, a huge beast shadow rushed out. It was also a golden leopard. Its body was over 300 meters long, and it was completely golden as if it was cast from gold leaf. However, it was different from the golden lightning leopard in that it had 2 huge wings on its back. As the wings flapped, a strong wind blew. This battle soul. Qin Feiyong's pupils constricted. He had seen this golden leopard in ancient books. It was also a divine beast called the Wind Thunder Leopard. It was said that in the distant past, there was a terrifying god of thunder. The god of thunder controlled all the thunder tribulations in the world and was one of the rulers of heaven and earth. The god of thunder's mount was the Wind Thunder Leopard. The Wind Thunder Leopard, whether it was in terms of speed or the ability to control lightning, far surpassed all living creatures. Qin Feiyong really didn't expect the golden lightning leopard to have such a terrifying battle soul. Are you afraid? But it's too late. Just wait to be destroyed. Innate superpower. Thunder destruction. As the golden lightning leopard roared, the wind thunder leopard rushed into the sky and stood proudly at the top of the 9 heavens. The next moment, in the cloudless sky, golden waves appeared out of nowhere, covering the sky and the sun. That was lightning. Looking from below, the sky seemed to have turned into a sea of lightning, exuding an aura of destruction. Crack! Boom! For a moment, in the sky of the White Tiger Mountain Range, it was as if a god of thunder had appeared. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, deafening the ears. The terrifying power of thunder shrouded the entire world. What's going on? In the distance, in the sky above a forest, the young man in black looked up at the sky, his face full of surprise. Could it be that some kind of treasure has appeared? Suddenly, his eyes flashed and he rushed to the plains like lightning. As for the ferocious beasts in the vicinity of the plains, they were extremely terrified when they sensed the frightening might of the lightning. Looking at Qin Feiyong again. At this moment, his face was full of seriousness. The golden sea of lightning in the sky was even more terrifying than the perfect battle skill that the golden lightning leopard had evolved before. Whoosh! The golden lightning leopard smiled coldly and rushed into the sky. Standing above the sea of lightning, it looked down at Qin Feiyong. In a trance, it was like a god of thunder, dominating the fate of all things. Human, wake up for this emperor. It raised its head and roared. It sounded like a great bell that resounded through the sky. Instantly, the sea of lightning in the sky poured down like a huge golden waterfall. It was an extremely spectacular sight. However, the destructive power it emanated was shocking as well. Qin Feiyong did not dare to be careless. This was because the falling sea of lightning gave him a fatal sense of danger. Clang! Accompanied by 2 loud noises, 2 blazing waves of fire surged out from behind him. That was right. He had activated his Scarlet Sword Soul and the 9-leaf Fire Lotus at the same time. In fact, he was confident in his Scarlet Sword Soul and the 9-leaf Fire Lotus. In terms of power, either of his 2 battle souls was stronger than the Golden Lightning Leopard's battle soul. However, at this moment, there was a huge gap between his cultivation base and the Golden Lightning Leopard's. The power of a battle soul would change according to one's cultivation base. If he only activated one battle technique now, he might not be able to compete with the Golden Lightning Leopard's battle soul. Therefore, he did not hesitate to activate both of his battle souls. As for the Purple Gold Dragon Soul and the Kill Formula, they were his greatest trump cards. Under normal circumstances, he would not use them. Moreover, the Golden Lightning Leopard did not have the right to make him use these 2 trump cards. Roar! Clang! As soon as the 2 battle souls appeared, they were instantly awakened. The 9 Fire Lotus leaves all fell off, each of them releasing a world-destroying wave of energy. The flaming beast shadow roared as it emerged from the Scarlet Sword Soul. Its might shook the world. Crush it! Qin Feiyong shouted. The 2 battle souls shot into the clouds and blasted into the sea of golden lightning. Rumble! A loud explosion shook the heavens, and the earth lost its color. The stalemate lasted for less than 3 breaths before the sea of golden lightning disintegrated. It turned into a golden rain of light that dyed the sky and earth red. The 9 Fire Lotus leaves disappeared in the explosion as well. The flaming beast shadow and the Scarlet Sword Soul were slightly damaged as well. However, this did not affect their auras. The 2 battle souls charged into the clouds at the same time. The Scarlet Sword Soul brought along thousands of sword auras and slashed toward the Golden Lightning Leopard. The flaming beast shadow roared like thunder and charged toward the Golden Lightning Leopard's battle soul, the Tempest Divine Leopard. Damned humans! He actually activated both of his battle souls. However, if he wants to hurt me with this, he must be dreaming. Thunderbolt 10,000 strikes. The Golden Lightning Leopard's expression was ferocious. It once again evolved a perfect battle skill. Lightning surged all over its body as it charged toward the Scarlet Sword Soul. The Tempest Divine Leopard roared and charged toward the flaming beast shadow at lightning speed. Bang! In that instant, both parties collided. The Scarlet Sword Soul, the flaming beast shadow, and the Tempest Divine Leopard were destroyed together. The Golden Lightning Leopard was still alive. However, its body was covered in blood. Furthermore, the Scarlet Sword Soul left a finger-deep wound in between its eyebrows. Blood was gushing out. It had even injured its sea of consciousness. It fell from the clouds helplessly. Its eyes were dull. A 3-star sacred beast could not defeat a 1-star battle saint human? It could not accept this. Phew! Below. Qin Feiyong let out a long sigh. Blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth. Obviously, his injuries were not light. However, although he had paid a high price, he had finally solved this problem. He slowly descended and landed on the broken plains. The life force in his body was also automatically repairing his injuries. 10 breaths later. With a bang, the golden lightning leopard fell on the ground not far from Qin Feiyong, creating a pit that was dozens of meters deep. This collision had undoubtedly caused it to suffer more injuries. It was lying at the bottom of the pit. Its body was bleeding profusely and its aura was extremely weak. If he did not rescue it, its life would be in danger. Qin Feiyong walked over and stood above the pit. He looked down at the golden lightning leopard and said lightly, "It seems that my skills are still better." The golden lightning leopard raised its head with great effort and stared at Qin Feiyong. Its eyes kept changing. After a while, it fell into a pool of blood again and said weakly, "You win. This emperor surrenders." Qin Feiyong smiled and closed the battle formula. He then took out an essence soul pill and a healing pill and was about to throw them to the golden lightning leopard. "Be careful." But at this moment, the golden lightning leopard seemed to have discovered something in the void above and suddenly shouted, Qin Feiyong was shocked. But before he could look up, a terrifying sacred aura erupted from the void above. Clang! Immediately after, a earth-shattering metallic sound exploded, like a divine sword being unsheathed. Qin Feiyong immediately sensed a world-destroying sharpness sweeping over. Without thinking, he activated the battle formula again. When he activated the battle formula, he noticed from the corner of his eyes that a black shadow fell from the sky and landed behind him. The next moment, he felt a pain on his back. It was as if something cold had entered his back, and it was heading straight for his heart. "You're courting death." Qin Feiyong was furious. He actually dared to sneak an attack on him. He slapped out with his palm. In his palm, the purple gold dragon chi surged. The black shadow also did not expect that at this time, Qin Feiyong still had the ability to fight back. It was not mentally prepared and was directly slapped in the chest by Qin Feiyong. Puff! The black shadow immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out like a meteorite. Its chest was torn apart by the purple gold dragon chi and was badly mutilated. But at the same time, Qin Feiyong's body swayed and also fell into the pit, rolling to the side of the golden lightning leopard. Chapter 956. What's going on? Golden Thunder Leopard looked at Qin Feiyong and then at the top of the pit. His eyes were full of suspicion. Why did another black shadow suddenly appear? Qin Feiyong endured the pain, touched the wound on his back, and also looked up at the top of the pit. His eyes were emitting cold murderous intent. This place fell into a short period of dead silence. Soon, a series of footsteps sounded above the pit, approaching from afar. Very soon, that black shadow appeared in the sight of Qin Feiyong and Golden Thunder Leopard. "It's you." Qin Feiyong clenched his hands. That's right. It was the black-clothed youth he met in front of the martial arts treasury. "Yes, it's me." The black-clothed youth stood above the pit, holding a dagger in his hand. The dagger was stained with purple gold blood. Obviously, the black-clothed youth used this dagger to sneak attack Qin Feiyong. "Why did you sneak attack me?" Qin Feiyong said in a deep voice. "Because I don't accept it. You're just an ant in the 9th area. Why are you valued by the chief tower master?" The black-clothed youth's expression was a bit ferocious, and his whole body emitted a shocking bloody aura. "So it's because of jealousy." Qin Feiyong frowned and said, "Who are you? How do you know I'm in the White Tiger Mountain Range?" Only Elder Wang and Chu Xian knew that he was hunting in the White Tiger Mountain Range. But Elder Wang and Chu Xian didn't have any grudges with him, so they shouldn't harm him. Could it be a coincidence? "Who am I?" Hearing Qin Feiyong's question, the black-clothed youth was so angry that he laughed and said, "You've been in the chief tower for so long, but you don't even know who I am. Am I so invisible?" Qin Feiyong frowned. Listening to what he said, this person's status in the chief tower was not low? Seeing that Qin Feiyong didn't seem to be pretending, the black-clothed youth became even more angry and shouted, "Listen up, I'm the king of the second tower, Wu Shan." "So it's you." Qin Feiyong suddenly realized. Wu Shan sneered, "Remember my name because soon you will die in my hands." "So confident?" Qin Feiyong said with a smile. "Stop pretending. Although I did not see the entire process of your battle with the Golden Thunder Leopard, I can tell from your injuries that you are already at the end of your road. In addition to my sneak attack on you at the end, I'm afraid that even a 9-star war sect can easily take care of you now." Wu Shan sneered. Qin Feiyong sighed helplessly. Why is it that in this world, there are always some people who like to act smart? Indeed. If it was an ordinary person, after a bloody battle with the Golden Lightning Leopard and then being ambushed, they would have been crippled. However, was he, Qin Feiyong, an ordinary person? He had the battle formula protecting him. It had purple gold dragon blood. He had even fused with the flame of life. These seemingly serious injuries were not even worth mentioning to him. In just a short while, the wound on his back had already scabbed over. More than half of the injuries from the battle with the Golden Lightning Leopard had been healed. However, since Wu Shan liked to act smart, then there was no harm in satisfying him. Qin Feiyong said helplessly, "All right, since you've already seen through me, then I won't pretend anymore. Just tell me, what will it take for you to let me go?" "You should have done this earlier." Wu Shan laughed sarcastically, lowered his head to look at the purple gold dragon blood on the dagger, and said, "Answer my first question first. Why is your blood purple gold?" "I was born like this. I don't know even if you ask me," Qin Feiyong said. Wu Shan raised his eyebrows and said, "The second question, why were you able to break through to the War Sage realm in such a short period of time?" "Why else? Of course it's because my talent is good. But you, why haven't I received any news that you've broken through to the War Sage realm? Or are you deliberately hiding it?" "But that doesn't make sense." Every disciple of the main tower yearns to enter the sacred grounds. Once they break through, they will immediately report it. If you're really hiding it on purpose, then you must have some unspeakable secret. Qin Feiyong squinted his eyes, paying attention to the changes in Wu Shan's expression. For some reason, the bloody aura exuding from Wu Shan's body always gave him an inexplicable sense of familiarity. And it made him feel repulsed, disgusted, and even disgusted. Hearing this, Wu Shan's gaze turned cold and said, "You have to understand, I'm the one asking you now." All right, continue." Qin Feiyong was somewhat helpless. "The third question. Although I did not see the entire process of your battle with the Golden Thunder Leopard, I clearly saw when you activated your battle soul. Your Sword Soul and Fire Lotus are exactly the same as Qin Feiyong's battle soul in the legends. Tell me, are you Qin Feiyong?" Wu Shan's eyes flashed. "Qin Feiyong? Who is this?" The Golden Thunder Leopard was slightly stunned, and turned to look at Qin Feiyong, its eyes filled with suspicion. At the same time, Qin Feiyong's heart trembled. He was actually seen by this person. Then this person must not be left alive. Next, he looked at the Golden Thunder Leopard and blurted out, "An unforgivable person." After saying this, he was stunned. Why did it sound so strange? Then he couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed that after pretending to be an ancestor for a long time, even he himself began to hate himself. He raised his head to look at Wu Shan and said, "If I say that I am Qin Feiyong, will you let me go?" "What do you think?" Wu Shan smiled sinisterly. "It seems that I won't." "That's true. If it wasn't for me messing up the situation, that Fire Qilin would have already become your Qilin tribe's clan guarding beast." "Right. There's also a person called Wu Xiao, who died quite miserably. As far as I know, he's the young master of your Qilin tribe." "I just don't know, who is he to you?" Qin Feiyong laughed mockingly. "It really is you." Wu Shan's eyes flashed coldly. Qin Feiyong shrugged his shoulders and said, "I didn't admit it." "Haha. I didn't expect this." Qin Feiyong, who is wanted by the Mu Jia and the Pagoda, is actually under everyone's nose. Even the Pagoda Lord wants to accept you as a pro-disciple. What a joke. Wu Shan laughed again and again, his eyes full of ridicule. "This is a mockery of the Mu Jia and the Pagoda." "Haha. Qin Feiyong slowly got up and said, knowing too much is not necessarily a good thing. Then what do you want? Kill me to silence me? But now, do you have the ability to do so? Wu Shan crossed his arms and looked at Qin Feiyong playfully. Then you have to be ready. Qin Feiyong's mouth lifted, his feet moved and instantly appeared in front of Wu Shan. What? This speed? The smile on Wu Shan's face suddenly froze. Since you already know that I am Qin Feiyong, then you should know how terrible my means are. Qin Feiyong chuckled. He raised his left arm and casually threw out a punch. Don't try to intimidate me. Wu Shan was furious. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist and punched towards Qin Feiyong. He doesn't believe that Qin Feiyong really has the strength to fight with him. Boom! The 2 fists collided with a loud bang. Qin Feiyong, who has the battle secret art to protect his body, stood firmly on the ground and did not move. On the other hand, Wu Shan was blown away on the spot. Blood spurted from his mouth, and with a loud bang, he smashed into a broken ditch not far away. This power. Impossible, absolutely impossible. He was lying on the ground with his hands on the ground, looking up at Qin Feiyong. His face was full of disbelief. I was just teasing you. I didn't expect you to take it seriously. Now you're surprised. Qin Feiyong stepped forward, walking towards Wu Shan as he laughed. Teasing me? Wu Shan was stunned. Following closely. His face contorted in anger. He was actually teasing him. What did he think he was? A monkey? A clown? You are a 1-star battle saint. I'm also a 1-star battle saint. He slowly got up from the ground. His face was extremely ferocious. Yes, we are both 1-star battle saints, so what? Qin Feiyong asked. I don't believe that I can't kill you when you are injured. Wu Shan's body shook, and his whole body was burning with flames. These flames were formed by battle force. It also carried a faint aura of a Qilin. It seemed that there was the power of the Qilin bloodline in his body. Following closely. He waved his hand, and the flames around him rushed up to the sky. In the blink of an eye, a huge flaming sword appeared. The huge sword was hundreds of feet long, and its body was surrounded by flames, illuminating half the sky. On the blade, there was a Qilin pattern. Qilin sword slash. Following that, Wu Shan roared, and the huge sword slashed towards Qin Feiyong with an ear-piercing sound of wind and thunder. Perfect battle art. Qin Feiyong muttered, his eyes full of disdain. If it was any other 1-star battle saint, they would definitely not dare to face that huge sword head-on. But Qin Feiyong even had a divine art, so he naturally wouldn't be afraid of this so-called Qilin sword. Moreover, he wasn't afraid of anyone in the same realm. Ever since I mastered the divine dragon technique, I haven't used it in a real battle. Now, I'll use you to test my saber. Qin Feiyong placed his hands in front of his chest and formed a seal. Streaks of purple-gold dragon energy quickly gathered between his hands. In the blink of an eye, a palm-sized square seal condensed, emitting a resplendent purple-gold divine light. And at the bottom of the square seal, there was a purple-gold divine dragon. That's right. This was the first move of the divine dragon technique, divine dragon seal. How powerful are you exactly? Qin Feiyong muttered, suddenly looked up at Wu Shan, waved his arm, and the divine dragon seal broke through the sky. Woo-woo! Roar! Suddenly, a violent wind blew, and the dragon's roar shook the 9 heavens, as if a divine dragon really was born. At the same time, the divine dragon seal expanded in the wind, and in an instant, it was like a towering mountain, colliding with the Qilin sword. That mighty dragon's might swept across the sky, causing countless beasts to tremble. In less than a blink of an eye, the divine dragon seal and the Qilin sword collided. Boom! Accompanied by a loud noise that shook the sky, the Qilin sword was instantly shattered by the divine dragon seal like a withered tree. There wasn't even the slightest bit of resistance, seemingly unable to withstand a single blow. Puff! Wu Shan's face instantly turned pale, his body shook violently, and he spat out mouthfuls of blood. This! He looked at the divine dragon seal. His face filled with disbelief. At the same cultivation level, with the same level of battle art, how could it possibly crush his Qilin sword? He didn't associate the divine dragon seal with a divine art at all, and thought that the divine dragon seal was a perfect battle art like the Qilin sword. In fact, he couldn't be blamed. No matter who it was, no one would think that the divine dragon seal was a divine art. Chapter 957. Crushing, Qin Feiyong was very satisfied with this. From now on, this divine dragon secret art would undoubtedly be his trump card. So strong. At the same time, the golden thunder leopard was also deeply shocked by Qin Feiyong's methods. It was only now that it understood that Qin Feiyong did not use his full strength when fighting with it. This person was really hiding his strength. Could he still have other tricks up his sleeve? The golden thunder leopard could not help but wonder. If Qin Feiyong had used these trump cards from the beginning, it would have been defeated long ago. I am a dignified king. How can I be defeated by you? Wu Shan, who was stunned for a moment, suddenly roared and erupted with an aura that was even stronger than before. Roar. Next, accompanied by a loud beast roar, a qilin rushed out from behind Wu Shan. That was not a real qilin, but Wu Shan's battle soul. It was also not a fire qilin, but a black qilin. Its entire body was burning with pitch-black flames, like a demonic flame, filled with a gloomy aura. But even so, it was shocking enough. Because the black qilin was the same as the fire qilin, they were both divine beasts. And among the divine beasts, the black qilin's status was comparable to the golden dragon. You're just an ant. How dare you challenge my majesty? Go to hell. Innate divine ability, roaring sky. Wu Shan was hysterical as if he had gone mad. As soon as his voice fell, the black qilin roared at Qin Feiyong in the sky. Suddenly, an invisible sound wave emerged, like a rolling torrent, pouncing towards Qin Feiyong. Boom! Crack! The already broken ground once again crazily cracked open, and abyss after abyss spread out. For a moment, the plains sank, chasms appeared everywhere, and a sandstorm swept through the sky. It was shocking. At the same time, under the impact of the sound wave, Qin Feiyong's ears also spurted blood like arrows, and his mind rumbled. Damn it, why is one stronger than the other? The golden thunder leopard was extremely angry, dragging its seriously injured body and frantically fleeing. The sound wave was too terrifying, shattering the earth. Even the mountain range outside the plains was destroyed. Towering trees rose from the ground and filled the sky. Mountain ridges collapsed one after another, and countless ferocious beasts were implicated, dying tragically on the spot. Jie. Now you know how powerful I am. Today, you will definitely die. No, I won't kill you. I'll cripple you and refine you into a pill so that you can never reincarnate. Wu Shan laughed sinisterly. Refining it into a medicinal pill? Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. How could Wu Shan say something like that? Could it be? Qin Feiyong suddenly thought of the blood demon pill. This was because only the blood demon pill required human flesh and blood. I understand. Why does the smell of blood on his body make me feel disgusted, familiar, and disgusted? So it's because of this blood demon pill. Qin Feiyong abruptly raised his head and looked at Wu Shan, his eyes flashing with intense killing intent. The purple-gold dragon aura surged wildly from his body, and in an instant, a purple-gold divine dragon was born. Its body was more than 1,000 feet long, covered in dragon scales and shining brightly. Although it was condensed from battle chi, its demeanor and appearance were exactly the same as a real purple-gold divine dragon. For someone like you, even if I destroy your bones and scatter your ashes, it will still be difficult to vent my hatred. Competing in sound wave attacks, is it? You're still far from it. Divine Dragon Art, Second Style, Divine Dragon Roar. Qin Feiyong shouted angrily. The purple-gold divine dragon turned in the air and let out a loud dragon roar at Wu Shan and the ink qilin. Roar. Immediately. A sound wave was born and instantly shattered the sound wave released by the ink qilin. It could be said to be unstoppable. This? Wu Shan turned pale with fright. The power of this dragon roar was actually more terrifying than the ink qilin's innate ability? Was he dreaming? One had to know. This was an innate ability. The innate ability of a battle soul would basically be stronger than a battle art by a level. A powerful battle soul's innate ability was even stronger than a perfect battle art. And his ink qilin's innate ability belonged to this level. Therefore, even if this divine dragon art, second style, divine dragon roar, was a perfect battle art, It was impossible to defeat the innate ability of the ink Qilin. Wu Shan could not figure it out. Why was Qin Feiyang's method so strange? Qin Feiyang said coldly, "When fighting with me, being distracted will cause you to lose your life." Wu Shan shuddered and suddenly came back to his senses. He immediately felt a fatal danger. The sound wave released by the purple-gold divine dragon had already pounced in front of him. It was too late to dodge now. Ah! Roar! The sound wave enveloped over and Wu Shan screamed in pain on the spot. His body was instantly mangled and blood splattered everywhere. The ink Qilin also let out a wail and was directly crushed into pieces by the sound wave. Amazing! The golden thunder leopard that was fleeing could not help but be secretly speechless when it turned back to see this scene. Its fear of Qin Feiyang deepened. No, I definitely can't fall into his hands. Otherwise, I'll definitely suffer. It muttered to itself and used its extreme speed to escape towards the mountain stream in the distance without looking back. You still want to run now? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. With a thought, the double-winged snow eagle appeared out of thin air and said, "I want it alive." Piece of cake. The double-winged snow eagle laughed and a pair of light wings appeared. It turned into a bright stream of light and chased after the golden thunder leopard. The light wings were the double-winged snow eagle's battle soul, comparable to a perfect auxiliary battle art. Although the golden thunder leopard's speed was comparable to a perfect auxiliary battle art, it was heavily injured and could not unleash its full potential. Therefore, the double-winged snow eagle's speed was now one level faster than it. What the hell? There's still a helper? At the same time, seeing the double-winged snow eagle appear, the golden thunder leopard's eyes widened and ran even faster. Seeing that you're running so hard, do you want me to give you a pair of wings? The double-winged snow eagle continued to approach with a playful look in its eyes. Humph! What are you so arrogant for? If you have the guts, wait until I've recovered from my injuries and then compete in speed? The golden thunder leopard snorted, feeling extremely sullen. It could tell at a glance that the double-winged snow eagle was a 2-star battle saint. If it was not injured, with the double-winged snow eagle's speed, it would only be eating dust. The double-winged snow eagle was stunned and mocked. Why don't you say wait until you've broken through to the Battle Emperor realm? Don't you know that there's a saying, take advantage of your weakness? You're so stupid that it's cute. Damn, you're the stupid one. Not only are you stupid, your whole family is stupid. The golden thunder leopard scolded continuously. Damn, say it again if you have the guts. The double-winged snow eagle roared. So what if I say it, bite me? The golden thunder leopard was not to be outdone. It turned around and looked at the double-winged snow eagle provocatively. Looking at the two beasts chasing each other, Qin Feiyang could not help but feel weak both physically and mentally. This was supposed to be an exciting chase, but now it had been turned into a shouting match by these two beasts. Both of them were the best. Following closely. His eyes turned cold and he looked up at Wu Shan. He saw Wu Shan falling from the sky. Not only was his body covered in wounds, but his life force was also almost gone. Finally, with a loud bang, Wu Shan fell to the ground, creating a large crater. The little bit of life energy that remained immediately dissipated. He died just like that? Qin Feiyang's face twitched. Wasn't this too easy to beat up? But after thinking about it, he felt relieved. The second form of the divine dragon's roar was also a divine art, so it was not rare for it to kill Wu Shan in an instant. He walked up and grabbed Wu Shan's cosmos bag. He lowered his head and carefully searched. Found it. A moment later, his eyes lit up. A few pills flew out of the cosmos bag and floated in front of him. These pills were blood-red in color and had 2 pill patterns on them. They emitted a strong smell of blood. It was the blood demon pill. I never thought that there would be someone who could refine the blood demon pill in this forgotten land. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the few blood demon pills shattered. Then, he crushed the cosmos bag and glanced at Wu Shan's corpse. He hated this kind of person from the bottom of his heart. It would not be an exaggeration to cut him into pieces. Soon, the double-winged snow eagle came back with the golden thunder leopard. Although the golden thunder leopard was a prisoner, it was still arguing with the double-winged snow eagle. Bang! After flying back, the double-winged snow eagle threw the golden thunder leopard at Qin Feiyang's feet. Then, the double-winged snow eagle grew to the size of a palm and landed on Qin Feiyang's shoulder. It looked at the golden thunder leopard maliciously. We made a bet first. Why are you running away now? Qin Feiyang looked at it and frowned. Humph, cut the crap. Today, I am unlucky to have fallen into your hands. Kill me if you want. The golden thunder leopard glared at the double-winged snow eagle and snorted at Qin Feiyang. You have a backbone. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said to the double-winged snow eagle, destroy its cultivation. Okay. The double-winged snow eagle waved its claws and a ray of battle chi flew into the golden thunder leopard's body. Ah! The golden thunder leopard howled in pain. It glared at the man and the eagle and roared, I would rather die than be humiliated. Don't go too far. Yes, I am. So what? The double-winged snow eagle sneered. The golden thunder leopard was furious. It roared, Bastard, let's fight one-on-one if you dare. One-on-one. That's exactly what I want. The double-winged snow eagle laughed evilly and rushed up to the golden thunder leopard to beat it up. Bastard, this is not fair. The golden thunder leopard roared again and again. Its lungs were about to explode. The double-winged snow eagle slapped the golden thunder leopard's mouth with its claws. It said disdainfully, You want to be fair? Ridiculous. The golden thunder leopard lost its temper. It finally realized that the double-winged snow eagle was not a good bird. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. This golden thunder leopard was quite fun. He quickly formed a seal with his hands and a seal of slavery appeared. Then, it flew into the golden thunder leopard's head like lightning. The golden thunder leopard screamed and asked in surprise, What did you do to me? Kid, you're lucky. This is called the seal of slavery. If you dare to do anything stupid in the future, Qin Feiyang can erase your soul with just a thought, no matter where you hide. And Qin Feiyang can also peek into your inner thoughts. The double-winged snow eagle gloated. The golden thunder leopard was stunned. How could this be called lucky? It was simply unlucky. Qin Feiyang laughed. Don't be nervous. As long as you do as I say, I won't hurt you. What do you want me to do? Chapter 958. Qin Feiyang took out spirit sea pills, essence soul pills, and healing pills and threw them to the golden thunder leopard. He then said, I need 55 one-star sacred beasts. 2-star sacred beasts are fine too. Phew. The golden thunder leopard heaved a sigh of relief. As long as it was not killed, it was fine. After taking the 3 pills, it asked doubtfully, Why do you need so many sacred beasts? Of course, to exchange them for contribution points. Qin Feiyang said. I understand. You deliberately came to find me and then waited for me to help you gather the sacred beasts. The golden thunder leopard said angrily. I didn't expect you to be so smart. Qin Feiyang laughed. What a treacherous bastard. The golden thunder leopard stared at him and then roared. Dong. At that moment, the earth shook. Numerous saint beasts of different sizes were charging over from all directions. Why was I so stupid? When I was fighting with this person, I should have asked them to help. Looking at the group of sacred beasts, the golden thunder leopard could not help but be angry. The sacred beasts in this area were all its little brothers. As long as it gave the order, they would immediately help it beat up Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang glanced at it and said lightly, Even if you ask them to help, you won't be able to run away. And the golden thunder leopard looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. He could actually peek into its inner thoughts? The 2-winged snow eagle joked. Don't tell me you think we are joking with you? Humph. The golden thunder leopard snorted and did not say anything more. But in its heart, it was extremely painful. To think that it, the dignified emperor of this area, was reduced to a human slave. How sad. Qin Feiyang glanced at it and could not help laughing. He asked, Where is the pool here? There is a lake not far from the south. The golden thunder leopard said powerlessly. Look after it, I will go wash up. Qin Feiyang whispered to the double-winged snow eagle. Then, he turned into a stream of light and quickly disappeared to the south. A moment later, he was back. The bloodstains on his body had been washed away, and he had changed into a clean set of clothes. He looked clean, neat, and refreshed. By the time he returned, There were already over 100 saint beasts gathered around him. He scanned them one by one. There were giant beasts as big as mountains and flying insects as small as fists. The golden-scaled dragon python that he had first encountered was also among them. Wu Shan's body had also disappeared, leaving behind only a pool of blood. It was obvious that he had been eaten by the beasts. The golden thunder leopard looked at Qin Feiyong and said in a low voice, "This emperor can let them go with you, but this emperor is determined not to go." "Why?" Qin Feiyong asked. "I've said it before. My parents and a few of my brothers died in the hands of you humans. Therefore, I only have hatred for you humans," the golden lightning leopard said. Qin Feiyong pondered for a moment, then nodded and said, "Okay, but I have a condition." "Say it," the golden thunder leopard said. "What you saw today, you are not allowed to mention it to anyone. And your group of little brothers, you have to keep your mouths shut. Otherwise, I will wash you with blood. Don't doubt whether I have the ability or not," Qin Feiyong said, a cold light flashing in his eyes. The golden thunder leopard's pupils shrank, and he nodded. "That's not a problem. It's best if you don't have a problem." Qin Feiyong waved his hand, opened a portal and said, "Let your little brother go in." The golden thunder leopard shouted, "If you want to go to the main tower to enjoy life, hurry up and go in." Enjoy life? Qin Feiyong and the double-winged snow eagle looked at each other. However, thinking about it carefully, these beasts entering the main tower were indeed enjoying life. Because all the beasts that were captured alive would be released in the mountains deep in the main tower. Qin Feiyong had also been to the depths. There was no killing, no disputes, and it could be said to be carefree. However, hearing the golden thunder leopard's words, all the beasts protested. Although they could be carefree, once they entered the main tower, it was equivalent to staying there for the rest of their lives and losing their freedom. The sacred beasts had spirituality and wisdom. Naturally, they also yearned for freedom. "Do you want to die? Hurry up!" The golden thunder leopard raised his eyebrows and shouted impatiently, showing the might of an emperor. Immediately, one by one, the one-star sacred beasts shrank their bodies and flew toward the portal reluctantly. As for the two-star sacred beasts, they retreated to the side under the golden thunder leopard's signal. The golden thunder leopard did this because he wanted to preserve the strength of this area. "Wait a minute." Qin Feiyong suddenly stretched out his hand. All the beasts stopped in the void and turned to look at him suspiciously. "For the sake of safety, I think it's better to control all of you. Relax your body and mind. Don't resist," Qin Feiyong said, and his hands quickly formed seals. 55 slavery seals appeared one after another, and then entered the skulls of 55 one-star sacred beasts. This included the golden-scaled dragon python. After the slavery seals were completed, Qin Feiyong put down his hands and said with a smile, "You can go in now." With the slavery seals, the 55 one-star sacred beasts had no choice but to enter the portal one after another. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and sent the double-winged snow eagle to the ancient castle. Then he looked at the golden thunder leopard and said with a smile, "Thank you, we'll meet again." Who the hell would meet you again? A row of black lines appeared on the golden thunder leopard's forehead. He waved his paws impatiently and said, get lost, and don't come back again." Qin Feiyong chuckled as he turned around and stepped into the portal. "Wait a minute." However, the golden thunder leopard seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly shouted at Qin Feiyong. However, Qin Feiyong had already disappeared. "Damn it! I actually didn't let him remove the slavery seal. I'm so stupid." Seeing the portal disappear, the golden thunder leopard was about to collapse. At the same time, the martial arts treasury. Elder Wang sat in front of the pagoda. In the square in front of the pagoda, a few disciples stood together, each holding a stone box and a jade slip. Their eyes were filled with disappointment. Obviously, they had just come out from the martial arts treasury and they were very dissatisfied with the combat arts that they had obtained. Bang! Suddenly, many terrifying sacred beasts appeared in the sky above the martial arts treasury. What is happening? The few disciples looked up at the sky almost at the same time and their expressions changed drastically. Why are there so many sacred beasts? Is this a beast tide? In the sky, many sacred beasts appeared out of thin air and their sacred aura spread in all directions. Not only the few people in the square, but the nearby disciples were also alarmed. They looked up at the sky and their eyes were filled with horror. Beast tide? Elder Wang opened his eyes and looked up at the sacred beasts that appeared out of thin air. 1 beast. 10 beasts. 20 beasts. 30 beasts. 40 beasts. 55 beasts. In the end, Elder Wang could not help but be shocked. 55 sacred beasts appeared at the same time. Whose masterpiece was this? As the guardian of the martial arts treasury, he naturally could not think that this was a beast tide like those disciples. And in the Forgotten Continent, there were no fierce beasts that dared to barge into the main pagoda. So, this must have been captured alive by some disciple. However, to be able to capture 55 sacred beasts in one go, this was the first time in the history of the main pagoda. Who could it be? Who had such great ability? Finally, a white figure appeared out of thin air. It was Qin Feiyang. It's him. Elder Wang was startled. Ancestor Mu? Did he catch all these sacred beasts? Oh my god, isn't he a 9-star war sect? How could he have this ability? The disciples were in an uproar, their eyes filled with disbelief. Elder Wang, someone must have helped him. Right, a mere 9-star war sect, capturing 55 sacred beasts alive. Even if you beat me to death, I won't believe it. Nullified, it must be nullified. The few disciples in the plaza immediately looked at Elder Wang and said angrily. Because Qin Feiyang had deliberately hidden himself, other than Elder Wang, the chief pagoda master and a few others, no one knew that he had already broken through to the War Saint realm. Hearing the words of those disciples, Elder Wang rolled his eyes and ignored them. He looked at Qin Feiyang and laughed. You have once again made this old man have a whole new level of respect for you. I was just lucky. Qin Feiyang landed in front of Elder Wang and laughed dryly while rubbing his head. Luck again? Elder Wang's face twitched and he shook his head. You little fellow, you really are unfathomable. Elder Wang, you can't be thinking of covering up for your ancestor, right? Seeing Elder Wang and Qin Feiyang talking and laughing, the disciples couldn't help but become anxious. Actually, they were jealous. 55 sacred beasts could be exchanged for a total of 5,500 contribution points. To them, this was an astronomical figure. This time, Elder Wang only glanced at those people and didn't say anything. Qin Feiyang turned around and looked at those people, his eyes full of ridicule. Did we say something wrong? With your strength, it's impossible to capture so many sacred beasts alive. You're also quite stupid. If you only brought back one sacred beast, we can still reluctantly accept it, but you actually brought back 55. Isn't this equivalent to exposing that someone helped you? We all know that you're about to become the chief pagoda master's disciple, but you can't be so arrogant. That's right, your behavior is simply breaking the rules of the chief pagoda. The few of them ridiculed without restraint. Stupid? Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Boom. All of a sudden, a terrifying sacred aura roared out from his body and rushed toward those people. Puff! The few of them immediately spat out blood and retreated, their faces full of shock and horror. This is sacred aura. How is this possible? When did he break through to the Battle Saint realm? Those people who ran over to watch the show were also shocked when they saw Qin Feiyang's saint aura exploding out of his body. Now tell me, are you stupid or am I stupid? Qin Feiyang looked at those people indifferently. The contempt in his eyes was undisguised. We are stupid. Those people were trembling with fear, terrified to the extreme. Qin Feiyang glanced at them disdainfully, retracted his sacred aura, and turned to Elder Wang with a smile. Can I enter the martial arts treasury now? Of course. Give your identity medallion to this old man. Elder Wang said with a smile. The more he looked at the young man in front of him, the more satisfied he was. He could always bring surprises. Qin Feiyang took out his identity token and handed it to Elder Wang with both hands. Elder Wang waved his hand. An array of light swept into the identity token. He then smiled. You can go in now. Thank you. Qin Feiyang grabbed the identity token, thanked Elder Wang, and walked toward the door. As for those disciples, as they looked at Qin Feiyang's back, their hearts were filled with bitterness. They wanted to embarrass Qin Feiyang in front of everyone, but they did not expect that they would become clowns instead. Most importantly, they had offended the future Chief Tower Master's disciple. If this person took revenge on them in the future, they would not be able to resist at all. Regret. At this moment, they wanted to slap themselves. Why did they have to show off for no reason? Weren't they just looking for trouble? After Qin Feiyang entered the martial arts treasury, Elder Wang looked at them and said, "Remember this lesson. It will be helpful for your future growth." Yes, yes, yes. They nodded repeatedly. Elder Wang looked at the jade slips in their hands and said, "Do you want to take these jade slips with you? If not, return them to me." They hurriedly and respectfully handed over the stone box and the jade slip. The highest quality jade slips were only medium-grade battle arts, so they naturally would not take them with them. Elder Wang put away the jade slips and stone box, and returned the contribution points to them. He then soared into the sky and flew toward the mountain range deep in the Chief Tower with the 55 sacred beasts. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.